Hey everyone, welcome to Timeless Mysteries Live Edition. How's everyone today on this Sunday afternoon? I've got Paul Rovere with me today. He has talked to uh, just about every serial killer who is currently still alive in the U.S. Uh, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. Well, it's Keith Revere. Paul Revere let the British come in, or British are coming.
Oh,
And,
Rovere.
That's okay. Keith Revere. Yeah, I have a podcast called The Lighter Side of True Crime. I have not just serial killers, but authors, criminologists, lawyers, some judges. I've been building a relationship up with them for the last 20 years. And I bring them onto the show for many reasons, mostly to talk about positive change in their life, big advocate for mental illness and prison reform, like what works, if anything, in the rehabilitation of violent offenders like that. And they come in and really talk about that, what has worked, what needs change in the prison system. And that mental health, is something we need to take seriously. Like there's evil people in the world who do evil things, but there's people with brain abnormalities and severe mental illness who do evil things. That's mostly what I'm interested in, the mental health aspect, and not just a cure for psychopathy and things like that, but there's progress being made. So I kind of bring awareness to that by having guys like this on my show, and women.
Yeah. So one of your podcasts that I listened to was on the Happy Face Killer.
Mhm.
That's let me see, this guy here. The thing that I thought was interesting, you guys were talking about the prison and what it was like and his conditions. And you almost seemed sympathetic that, he was living in kind of a bad situation. His cell was flooded and he had mold and stuff like that. Is that what you guys, is that one of the things you kind of talk about a lot? Prison conditions?
In one aspect, him not so much. He was just happened to be, believe it or not, he's in the honor unit at his prison. He's been there for decades and decades. And, for well-behaved people, you get to move at different sections of the prison. It's a little bit leaning towards an incentive-based prison, like a Norway prison system, reward-based, so to speak. So they're trying things out in California, Oregon. His prison facilities are one of them. Like he has a putt-putt golf course out back. There's a lot of options, for people who are well-behaved, and that's an incentive, especially for violent offenders. Where, if you're a psychopath and have psychopathy, you're not deterred by fear. So the threat of punishment is not going to do any good. But you reward them with things, or the promise of reward. Now they're well-behaved. So we do talk about prison reform, where I'm a big advocate for that across the country. Yes, there's time for punishment. There's time for, getting thrown into the hole, so to speak. But if that's all you do is punish, a lot of these men and women are going to get out. Then you might go in for stealing a car, but you're going to come out a violent nut, ready to kill the world because of the way you're treated in prison. Granted, if I was the victim of a violent offender, you might think, oh, punish. Yeah, but they're going to get out one day. They really need to rethink about a reward-based prison. Not that I'm treating kind, treat kind to serial killers and be kind to them in love and compassion. No, it's deeper than that. It's about rehabilitation, because they're going to get out, or if they change their hearts, change their mindset, they can help other people through prison, which we can talk about that later for other people on the podcast. But for the Happy Face Killer, we don't really talk too much about his prison conditions. It's mostly about him reaching out to other people. He's last podcast we did, he reached out to Brian Kohlberger. We both went viral not too long before that, because the Long Island serial killer suspect, Rex Heuermann, he wrote him a letter. He likes to write other serial killers. Well, Rex wrote him back. That's what went viral around the world. That Rex Heuermann wrote Keith Jesperson back, and we did a podcast talking about that. And I have the letter. Keith actually sent me the letter to them, kind of talking about how he should come to his facility. He talked to Brian Kohlberger about, he should come to his Oregon facility, where you'll be treated better, you'll be treated kinder, you get better rehabilitation there. So we talk everything from that to artwork. Behind me is some of his, artwork pieces back here up on the wall, and behind me, the Happy Face, Melting Mickey's, he calls it. So we talk about a little about everything, but a lot of it's about prison reform and him trying to help other people out.
Yeah. Before we started, you were showing me some of the stuff that you've gotten from serial killers. Maybe you'd like to share that stuff with the audience real quick.
Yeah, a few things directly around me. You can see behind me, there's some artwork there. There's some origami. Robert Yates, a serial killer in Washington. Here's a little piece. You can see him kind of sign on the bottom of it. You can see on the light with the angle, Robert Yates. He does dry. And this is like serious origami.
That really is some serious organ. I've never seen
Yeah,
anything like it.
I have tons of those. A couple behind me, 4 or 5 more pieces over here. Dennis Rader, BTK. Maybe not as ornate as that, but his rose. He
Oh
sent a
wow.
rose. I have some more. I have some artwork from BTK. But BTK, you'll be surprised because the bind, torture, kill. You would think he does the most sadistic things in the world. He sends pictures of Japanese haiku, springtime poems, puppy dogs, rainbows. You would not believe the things that he would send as far as artwork goes. We're talking earlier about Chris Watts, and he does some origami. Here's a rose that I have of his. And he does some artwork too. Actually, Chris is actually a very talented artist. I don't have any of his pieces, but I've seen some. He's very talented alone, although I didn't really get to know him too much. I only talked to him briefly a few times about his Christian faith, whether he is or isn't a Christian. I didn't get to know him that well. But yeah, my house, I probably have honestly easily over 1,000 pieces of artwork that's sent me over the years, whether it's holiday time or birthdays or a thank you if I help them out with something with a case or a family member. I've seen tons of letters and personal items from glasses or clothing they don't want anymore. It's my mailman obviously thinks I'm crazy. All this stuff from different prisons around the country and sometimes around the world coming. I never know. It's a surprise almost every day when I'm getting sent. It's like I have a true crime museum, but never even asked for it. Just bunch of thank yous for here and there. Helping them out, something financially or with a family member of the situation. I mean, that's why me and Keith Jesperson, the Happy Face Killer, started getting along. Because his daughter, Melissa Moore, always has to have her face in the media, goes out of her way to say lies and make things up about Keith, her father. He has enough truth about him with 8 victims, enough horrific truth. You don't need to make things up. I called her out on a few things, and so she stopped, saying these lies, and we kind of hit it off from there. But yeah, it's a little museum over here, I guess you can say.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. I talked to Dr. Ramslin about BTK. She wrote the biography with him. And she said that she had been like exchanging chess games in the mail. Like he would, mark his move in a letter
Sure.
and then she would send it back. I think stuff like that's kind of interesting. I know the people who watch on my channel here, I forgot to turn on the comments. We've got a couple people here. Hey, Olga. Hey, my Kentucky. Hey, Molly. I'm glad you're here. I don't know if you guys caught that, but Keith here said that he has actually got art from Chris Watts. These are some of they really are interested in that case. And you've spoken with Chris Watts. I know we're not planning to talk about him today, but maybe we could talk about him for a minute or two, whatever you remember about him.
Well, most people that I talk to, I started all of this. I've been in prison aftercare ministry my entire life. Long story short, I realized in the local prison systems here in the South Jersey, Philadelphia area, here on the East Coast, that the men and women, mostly men, that were turning their lives around were those who felt kindness and love. Guys like me were going into, very bad neighborhoods and just supporting them, helping them out. Now, it's mostly, faith-based things. So I thought, man, if this works on a local level, because the prison system wasn't helping them out at all, we can just work on a deeper level, like real violent offenders. I started reaching out to Manson members that I knew were Christians. So maybe we have a connection. Charles Tex Watson, who I've known for like 20 years. Bruce Davis, Manson member, has been on my podcast numerous times. David Berkowitz, the son of Sam. I've done a few projects with him. So we connected that way. And that's what was working. They said what has helped us out the most, is faith, Christian faith, or even if they weren't religious, volunteers coming in and caring, because some of them have never felt true love and kindness their whole lives. That was part of their, breakdown of mental breakdown. And I heard Chris was a Christian. I didn't get to know him long enough because a lot of them, they're not. They'll say anything you want for a parole board to make themselves look better in the press, which is the case a lot of the times. It's not the case with Charles Tex Watson. He has a website about his faith. He has helped thousands of people. David Berkowitz, it's not a fake thing. Same with Bruce Davis. I can't tell you about Chris. I said we only exchanged a couple letters, and that was a few years ago, so I didn't know him that well. So I couldn't tell if he was just another fake person, for the parole board, or it was a genuine conversion of faith. That I do not know. So I didn't really get to know him that intimate of a level like I do with a lot of people. But hopefully, I've reached out a few times. I just haven't heard back for a long time. I know he likes to write the ladies. That's why some things I'll question about his faith, because I was surprised to even hear from him as a man, because usually he'll have, hundreds of letters, that he'll get from women. And because I know women who used to talk to him, and that's what he was about, just responding to all the girls, just that mentality. So that's why I questioned a little bit of his faith when all he was talking about was with women and getting, pretty graphic, on some of the letters that I've seen when he was writing women. So I'm not sure how genuine his faith is, but again, I can't vouch either way for him.
Yeah, from what I've gathered, he like reads his Bible all the time, and that's the only thing he does. Supposedly, he was writing a book to help other people with, something. I'm not personally like super religious or anything. I'm not anti-religious either, but it always struck me as weird to hear him say that, he had found God, that he's praying all the time, and that, he's trying to work with other inmates and do some sort of ministry thing. And it sounded like a scam to me, like, to make himself look good. Does that
Usually
happen
the case.
a lot?
A lot. Yeah. I mean, even locally here, even if it's not a scam, so to speak, which happens a lot, some of these men and women, they have nowhere else to turn. Say they get a Bible, they'll memorize it back and forth sometimes. I've encountered so many people here locally that they could preach you a sermon. But as soon as they get out into the real world, they're right back to their real lives, and it was like head knowledge, and that was it. Nothing affected their heart. It wasn't that transformation. I'm born again experience. It was none of that. Good positive things. Hey, read whatever you want as long as it keeps you positive, calm in prison. But there's a big difference between head knowledge and a change of heart, becoming truly a believer, a follower of Christ, a disciple of Christ, whatever you want to say it. It's a big difference, that and memorizing a couple Bible verses. You can you can be a pastor of a church for that matter and still not be a Christian. You can memorize this stuff and give a good sermon. You're just a motivational guy, so somebody like Chris and a lot like him, it's really, you got to get to know them on a deeper level, because from the surface, hey, he teaches a Bible study. Hey, he's reading a book or writing a book. Hey, he's helping others in prison. That means nothing. Anybody can do that. An atheist can do that. He just memorize the right words. It's that pure change of heart. So it has to be tested. You got to test something like that. Well, obviously, he's probably not ever going to get out to really, test that. But the people in prison, they'd be the ones to talk to who see him every day. Like, hey, I saw how you talked to him. I saw how you reacted, when somebody did something negative to you. I saw how you forgave him, and I saw how you wept when you talked about the people you murdered. You wept in tears and repentance. And there's a big difference between that and I'm writing a book. Oh, I'm helping somebody to read and write and help them with their case. And there's a big difference between the two, so I didn't get to know them that deeply. Most men and women that I do talk to, over the years, you can tell pretty quickly if faith is sincere or not. But him, only a couple letters were exchanged, and that was a few years ago. So I really have no idea. It's like Jeffrey Dahmer. Oh, Jeffrey Dahmer got baptized. He's a Christian. Anybody can get dunked in water. Doesn't mean you're a Christian. I don't care how many pastors visit you. But I knew people on the inside who knew Jeffrey Dahmer. I know that. I know the people, Scarver. I talked to Scarver before, the guy who killed him. I know why he was killed. People just think, oh, he's killed because he's a celebrity. No, that wasn't the reason. The reason why he was freaking everybody out. He's walking around when he's eating his lunch, he's getting French fries, talking about it's a limb, dipping in the ketchup like it's blood. Look what I'm doing. Look what I'm doing. He would not stop. He was freaking everybody out in the prison. So that's what got him killed. Not his celebrity. Not people were jealous, because he would not stop pissing people off and freaking people out. And that's what got him killed. That's the truth of it, because I know people in the facility. I talked to Scarver before. I know exactly why. Not a Christian. I don't care what anybody says. Baptized all you want. That means nothing. No, I shouldn't say that. It means something if you are of the faith. It's very important symbolization to do, a covenant thing before God. Not for him. That was just, that was stupid.
So with with faith and stuff, when you got psychopathy, you don't really have the same emotions as everyone else. There's a different fear. There's basically no fear response. And I think the basis of faith is the fear of God. So, can a psychopath feel the fear of God and actually devote himself fully like a regular, devout Christian could?
Oh, sure. It's not just fear. A lot of people don't become Christians because they fear God, because they love God. They realize their own inadequacies. Yes, there's a fear of God is almost also loving God. It's not like, oh, I'm terrified. There's a judgment coming, but that's not what's going to bring somebody into faith. I don't care who you are. That's pretty rare. And there's different levels of psychopathy. There's countless psychopaths walking around today who will never commit a crime. They have no urge to commit a crime. They don't like blood. They don't like, they don't want to do anything like that. Christians or Jews or Muslims, any faith for that matter. But you might not be able to feel empathy like the next person. You might not be able to feel fear. And with another part of psychopathy, what people don't realize, it's very hard to stop yourself before you do something stupid. Like we have that stop button, like somebody cuts us off in traffic. Our first reaction might not be healthy, but 2 seconds later, I'll let that one go. They don't have that. They don't have that stop button. So if something does push them to the edge, like Keith Jesperson, who says he'll never kill again if he gets out, I believe him 100%. Keith said he believes in his heart he will never kill again. Well, you don't have that choice. Your brain doesn't work like that. If someone aggravates you enough, you don't have the ability to stop. But as far as what faith goes, or with psychopathy, if you don't feel fear, but you'll never kill anybody, never the urge to, you're going to be a great person on the bomb squad. You have no fear. You're race car drivers. You're business leaders. Now, I'm not too political, but like the Donald Trumps of the world, in the business sense, you can climb that corporate ladder not caring who you're stepping over. You don't feel empathy. I mean, it's in there in little bits and pieces. I mean, Keith was the first person to say, there's some things you're scared of or, fear of, but this not like the way we feel it. But there's plenty of people in every faith who are psychopaths. You're killing anybody. You don't have those urges. It's usually tied to something. You can be born with your amygdala, which really holds empathy in the frontal cortex. If that's a little smaller in volume or, a head injury and things like that. Oh, yeah, you can be born with psychopathy. An MRI can show us that. Doesn't mean you're going to do any harm. It's usually mixed with a few things. Childhood trauma, a severe head injury, or some kind of traumatic event or abuse. It's usually tied together. It's not like one recipe fits all. Like sociopaths are kind of made. They're created, but psychopaths, which is more of a mental thing. Plenty of psychopaths are all faiths.
All right. So I did make up a PowerPoint. It's not quite as good as I wanted it to be. Let me see if I can bring it up. But I got some basic information on several of the guys you've interviewed. This is the happy face killer, Keith Jesperson. He was... these are basically some facts. I would like to talk about the wrongful convictions. What do you know about those?
Well, what Tanya Bennett was really the main one, where this little old lady, and her husband at the time was very abusive. Took credit for it. Laverne Pavlinac, I believe her name was, and I forget what the husband's name was. The husband's boyfriend, I forget, but he killed her. And we actually did we did 8 victims that he has. We had 7 podcasts talking about the 8 victims, and he killed Tanya. And Laverne wanted to get out of an abusive relationship, so she blamed her ex. Right? So I think she might have been dating or married at the time. Blamed him, and she was tied to it. So they both went to jail, but mainly for her to get away from the abusive boyfriend or husband. And when Keith found out about that, I mean, Keith's obviously a psychopath. He's a narcissistic psychopath. He loves the credit. He loves that there's TV shows about him. He loves when I help facilitate interviews for like News Nation, the Banfield Show, and Fox News, and all these things. He loves the attention, and he also wants the credit. I did that. His response might be, "Oh, I don't want a wrong person going down for it," or I want the credit. He'll tell you one or the other. But it took him a while. The police refused to believe that he did it. They believed they had the right 2 people there, and even Keith said, "I did it. This is how I did it." Laverne, she had a button missing on her pants because Keith wanted to hide the fingerprint, so he cut it out. She put a fake button in a fake jean patch in the trunk of a car. Like nothing added up that she was doing. Like, everything she did was wrong. And Keith finally produced evidence that I think it was the ID and the button or something like that, where he actually dumped the evidence out, and they finally found it. It took a while to find it because he didn't remember exactly where it was. But no, he definitely did it. But that was why the other 2 people, or just Laverne, admitted that her husband did it. But it was just a lie, just to get out of an abusive relationship, which all came to light, and he got released from prison and all that. But that was really the only one that Keith was questioning about. Now, when he went out, just to get he wasn't getting enough attention that he needed in prison. He wanted to get more information out there, so he made up, I killed like 180 some people. That was just fabrication, just to get the attention back on him, so he could get more of his truth out there. But it was only 8.
Yeah. So we know that there's at least 8 victims, but I believe they're still looking, trying to link him to other murders. I think one of them was recently named as one of his victims back in 23, a couple of years ago.
Well, that was part of the 8. They just didn't know her name. That was one out of Florida. But the DNA revealed the girl's name, but she was always part of the 8. He admitted to it, he just didn't know the girl's name.
Oh, okay. Actually, I do remember hearing that he only had the first name. He didn't have the last name. and he wasn't sure about the first name, right?
Yeah, that's
Something
where
like
that's when he started going viral because a detective flew up to Oregon, talked to him about it, had a chest camera on. And that's when he revealed that, he wrote Rex Schumann, the Long Island serial killer suspect, a letter, and that Rex had wrote him back. And then the news picked up on that, and that just went viral. But that was that time frame. But yeah, but she was always part of the 8, and just the full name and her identity just wasn't known until then. Now, they tried to pin many things on him. He could have confessed to dozens and dozens more. I mean, to this day, they still try to pin him on things. But with Keith, a long-haul truck driver, they have records. They know where his truck was driving around the country. So he said, "Oh, you're a victim. We think you did this murder over here." Yeah, but my book has me, on the East Coast. That was on the West Coast. So he can easily, by his records, be tracked exactly where he was. What week, what day, what time, and what year, whatever it was, is very easily disproved. So Keith's like, even if I wanted to claim more bodies, no, not that I'm defending him, but just the truth. Even if I wanted to claim all these bodies, I can't. I got truck records. Now you can see exactly where I'm at. It's not like there's 2 truck drivers; it's just him. He's the only driver. But from me, he says, there's 8, and he says there always will be 8.
So you don't think there's any other victims? Then you actually believe them?
With that, yeah, because I believe Keith's the kind of person who would have taken credit, for more. If there's actually more, I have no doubt he would want that publicity. To say, yeah, I did this, and this. I don't have any doubt he would want to take credit for it because he's not getting out. He ain't going anywhere. You can't get any worse for him where he's at. So if he has 19 more bodies, his daily life is still exactly the same, and nothing changes for him.
So how did he pick his victims? I've got listed here on my slide that it was hitchhikers and sex workers. I mean, that's typically how killers find people, is those marginalized people that are easy targets.
Yeah.
But the woman that you mentioned was trying to get out of her abusive relationship. Was she a hitchhiker or just like how?
Most of them were. I mean, Tanya Bennett was, and he met her in the bar. But almost all the other ones, during the truck driver, you get arrest stops. And they're, escorts working at all of them, to this day. That's where you get the hookers and stuff they hang out at. Now, he has given, now he's not allowed to give, pick up hitchhikers, but, no one really knows. I mean, no truckers, I think, really are. But he has given, and we go into detail about in the podcast, countless rides to women all across the country. And they would say great things about him. Nothing wrong. Nothing was wrong because Keith has never had the urge to kill. He's not that type of psychopath. He doesn't have a lust to kill. He doesn't go out seeking. He's not like a BTK or Richard Ramirez, a night stalker, stalking his next victims. He never did any of that. He's just the kind of person, when he gets aggravated enough, he doesn't, like I said before, he doesn't have that stop button not to kill. He's going to kill. So every one of the victims aggravated him in one sense or another, whether it be annoying him. Hey, I agreed to take you to here. Well, the one was like, "Oh, I want you to take my boyfriend's house. It's a little further." No, I said here. "Oh, come on, here, strangle." It's that it's always has to be pushing his buttons. And his joke is, "Oh, you hate women. All you do is kill women." He's like, "No, I love women. I love them to death." That's his little joke. But there is men that would have been killed before. When he was younger, he was about to kill somebody who kicked him off. He was hunting hunting or fishing. I forget what he said on the podcast. But his brother was with him, and his guys gave him a hard time, and he was going to kill those guys who wanted to kick him off the property. But his brother was there. But he would have killed. And I asked him one time, we did a Q&A with my followers asking questions, and they asked him, "How come you haven't killed any men?" And he gave a very, I think, a deep answer. He said, "Because men know when to stop." Keith's almost 7 foot tall. Keith's a giant. So you're not going to piss a guy like that off. Even if you don't know if he can fight or not, if you're not going to push a guy so much where you might get punched, you're going to stop. Well, a woman, the last thing you think is a guy's going to punch you or strangle you to death. So you might, poke and prod a little bit more, irritate, especially when you're on drugs. You're a prostitute. You're not always, a sound mind and body, so to speak. So you might be aggravating a little more, not thinking you're going to get strangled. But unfortunately, you're in your truck with a psychopath who doesn't have a stop button. So as soon as he gets that, I'm too irritated right now. It's not pull over, open a door, and you need to get out. It's I'm taking you back and strangling you. So that's why he did it, because he was irritated. Horrible. We can't fathom that, but It's not, we don't have his mind. We're not psychopathic, to that level of we'll stop ourselves. If somebody's irritating us, we walk away. That's what a normal brain does. We walk away. If you happen to pick up somebody like that, we stop politely at the next door. You need to go, open the door there. That's what a normal brain does. Psychopathic brain strangles.
Yeah. I think I've met people who've always like took a step over the line where, I would like, some people will be like, for example, when I was a kid, they'd be like, I'm going to kill you. They would, but they never tried to.
Yeah.
And then there's those other people that say, I'm going to kill you and then pick up a baseball bat. That's a little bit over the line. And then there's like the next type who actually takes a swing. I think I think I understand that stop button,
Yeah.
Most people would stop probably before they even pick up a weapon.
Yeah, of course.
And if they do pick up a weapon, they're going to stop before they swing.
Definitely.
Shoot or stab or whatever.
100%.
So I did have a few questions about him specifically. If you can read those. So I'll just kind of go through some of these. When Jesperson described Oregon State Penitentiary, it almost sounds like a small community, like with putt-putt golf and pickleball and concerts and car shows. And I mean, do you think that environment makes it too easy for somebody who's committed horrible crimes like the crimes that he's committed?
No, but it's easy to see why people would say yes. Wrote a book here called The Story of You. And a big part of it's about one specific person I saw on a show called Signs of a Psychopath named Yu Misaki. But part of the book, I look at the Norway prison system, which is an incentive-based, reward-based prison. They have the lowest recidivism rate in the world. What's the chances and odds that someone's going to reoffend within 3 to 5 years? The lowest. At the time, it was like over 20%. Now it's like 17%. American prison systems, which is punish, 70 to 80% recidivism rate. Means they're coming back. In violent offenders anyway, they're coming back. So I'm like, what is it about the Norway prison system? I interviewed the warden there, talked to him, researched it for a year or so. Specific with violent offenders and specifically with psychopaths, not that all violent offenders are psychopaths, again, fear doesn't deter them. There's no rehabilitation. Now, when you go to the prison, rules aren't the same out here as they are in there. It's a completely different setup, no matter what prison you go to here in America, with the exception of with a few that are incentive-based. Like I said, you can go in for, you're only doing 10 years. You did some petty crime, you get 5 to 10 years, something like that. To survive in prison, this is not jail. Jail's where you go. Jail's the holding tank. You're doing a little bit of time. You're doing 2 or 3 years, you go to jail. You're doing 5 years plus, you go to prison with the big boys. So if you hit that, I got to go 6 years to 10 years for robbing a car, stealing something, whatever it may be, or robbing a store, stealing a car. You're in there with the heavy hitters. You're in there with serial killers and violent offenders. You need to be violent to survive. It's very difficult to survive prison. Just sometimes you get thrown in a hole. You're in the hole in solitary for 2 years and get let right out of prison from the hole. Well, now the suicide rate's like 70% because you're mentally, you can't handle that. So these punishment style prisons in America are making things worse. Now, from an outsider point of view, hey, we don't care what happens to them. We want them to be punished. I get that, and I'll argue against it, but I completely understand with it. I feel for the victims and families who, of course, they want them punished. But my argument is, what if they're getting out and that person is going to be your neighbor? That person comes out twice the psychopath he was when he went in. He went in for stealing a car. Now he comes out a raving lunatic. He killed people in prison, beat people in prison half to death, because that's what you got to do to survive. You got to join a gang. You got to, do this and do that. Things you would never do here in the real world. Now that person's released. He's your neighbor, and your little kid has to walk by his house from the school bus to your house every day. Do you want that person living next to you, or someone from an incentive-based, positive, reward-based prison who now knows empathy, kindness, has job training, skills, people skills, communication skills? The guards aren't just trained in combat, they're trained in communication. Now the people talk, there's counseling, there's medication. They want to actually help you and succeed. So when you get out, you're ready for the real world. You're ready to handle a job. You're ready to have communication with people, because you might never had that father figure, or even a mother figure for that matter. All you might know is gangs and drugs, But if you come out from an incentive-based prison, yes, there's pickleball. Yes, there's counseling. Yes, there's softball games and putt-putt golf courses and things like that. But for those who are getting out, that's, I think, where you really, when you take a step back and let emotions out of it, that's the person you want rehabilitated, because fear-based prisons, they're not really there to rehabilitate. They're here to treat you like a dog and punish, and obey them. They just do nothing but, you will fear us. You will fear the guards. No, that doesn't work. Now, and for those who are even on death row, oh, well, those guys aren't getting out. Why do we want to help them? I had more serial killers. David Berkowitz, I've done more positive projects, faith-based projects with him, because someone who's on the outside who's struggling with mental illness and sickness, you can't go to a doctor. Hey, I have people, literally people. I have females, other countries, even a couple girls in Italy. One specifically, who was just a teenager. He's 18 years old now, wants to have a baby so she can eat it. Slicing her body all up, burning her body, wants to kill people, wants to eat people. What's your psychologist going to say to that? She can't do that. These are the people to reach out to me because they know I talk to these. So I know people like Wayne Adam Ford. He's been on my podcast numerous times. He ain't getting out, but he can be a blessing to those people like her. And that's just one example. There's numerous examples by coming on my podcast and say, hey, this is what worked for me. Not only do I have psychopathy, schizophrenic, autism, Asperger's, I have this, but this is what worked. This is what kept me, because he can respond to her in a way that no person with a normal brain can respond, because he knows how these people think. So he's helping people, and behind the scenes writing letters, and through tablets. The prisons have tablets now they can communicate with. So even people like that who now have learned kindness because they felt it from people like me reaching out, trying to encourage them to be a better person, they're actually helping thousands and thousands of people, whether it's encouraging them in their everyday life, encouraging them in their faith. Hey, this person is a Christian. Well, I can be a Christian. I've done horrible things too. And or just positive change, even religion out of the aspect of it. They're helping them just survive day to day without killing anybody, because there's so many people out there that want to do that, have nowhere to go. So they'll listen to a podcast like mine for the sole reason of, I need help. And privately, I'll put them in touch with the person because they can have more one-on-one, because I'm not going to say, I don't know what to tell them. I play middleman for a bit, but that's about it. But that's another reason where, yes, we should help them out, because they can reach through positive change others. Now, there's some who, like Keith Jesperson, doesn't think anything's wrong with him. He thinks he's perfectly fine, doesn't want to be poked and prodded, doesn't want to. He'll help other people in the narcissistic aspect to it, to where I'm trying to help him with a legal case because look at me, I can help him. But it's not doing it out of kindness and empathy and really want to change in their lives. It's more like, hey, look at me, I'm helping, kind of a thing. But I mean, those who really want to help, like the David Berkowitzes and the Wayne Adam Fords, who really want to help other people, Charles Tex Watch and Bruce Davis, they're more faith-based. But so it's a good argument to say that we need positive change in prisons. You can torture all you want, but they're going to get out one day. The vast majority of them. Not everybody's doing life without parole. Not everybody's a serial killer. Most people are going to get out. And that's one more argument. So who do you want coming out? Twice the monster than they were when they went in, or somebody who now knows what kindness, respect, and caring is all about?
Here in Anchorage, we have therapeutic court systems where, they work. These are people who committed crimes, maybe not, felonies, but they're committing crimes, and that crime, what is it called? The rap sheet gets longer and longer, and then the next crime, eventually they're going to end up with a felony and in prison. But the therapeutic courts help the people get through whatever's causing these, types of petty crimes. But the thing is, I'm not entirely sure that there's very many people that actually are successful with these kinds of things. And I'm curious, with your research on the prison system in Norway, like what is the realistic numbers looking like for the people who get out who are actually rehabilitated compared to the recidivism that you'd mentioned? The return.
Well, I can just tell you, the actual numbers went from about 70% return to prison below 20% in Norway. Another state, most states have gone to visit Norway, and that's the European kind of style over there. North Dakota in America has adopted it. They went from 70% down to about 23-24% recidivism rate. Oregon and California are dabbling with it now. So it's proven a fact that the numbers are going down, and going down drastically in the case of violent offenders. So, those are the only ones that have really been studied because they've been at it the longest. But from 80% to below 20%, from 70% down to the high 20% in North Dakota. Oregon's numbers are dropping down. California numbers are dropping down. But only certain facilities do it, because politicians kind of run everything, and they're going to listen to the people. And the vast majority of Americans, they don't want that. I'm a very, very small minority who's screaming as loud as I can. But no, this works. Let alone it's going to cost the states less money, Because some states, it's going to cost you from $30,000 to $70,000 per inmate. That's what it's costing the state. So more reason you would think they would not want more people in there. Now, not the privately owned prisons. That's just a money bank. They don't want anybody leaving. They want more money, money, money. Different. That's a whole different argument of why they're not pushing this. But the gist of it is people don't care. People want them punished, but to me, that's short-sighted, because when they get out, well, now you got somebody's crazier than we were when they went in. But the states that have done it full blast, it's clear the numbers significantly drop down in the case of violent offenders.
I think I saw like a preview for some sort of documentary where they were doing this kind of incentive prison thing on TV. Mm-hmm. Do you know what that one? Are you familiar with it?
Yeah, I think it was on Netflix, if I'm not mistaken. Now they rushed into it. They basically said freedom. You can't just tell the guys, okay, no more guards in the room. You can do whatever you want, but their heart was good in the right place. Like, hey, let's try this test out. Hey, you can have free use of the phone, Well, guess who's fighting for the phone? Now, inmates are fighting, who's going to use the phone, who's going to do this. So you can't just say, oh, all the time in the yard you want. So the older guys who, been there a long time, they were more level-headed, and the young guys didn't care about it. We're going to do what we want. So who's in charge now? Now it's a fight of who's in charge. The guards aren't coming in anymore. They hand the food out and go. I'm not even hand the food out. If they hand the food out, they just put the trays in there and they split. You can't just say free for all, go, it's baby steps, so it kind of worked a little bit in the end, but it was confusing and chaos the whole time, because you can't just say that, well, who's the leader? Well, the young guns, I want to be the leader. And the old guys, like, we've been here longest, we're the leader. We have, more experience in that. So fight. It was a disaster of what they did, but in the end, it worked out pretty good. Slowly but surely, after mess up, they started to get a little routine and stuff like that. But you really got to bring baby steps, like how you go like BTK. I talked to a guy put on a podcast, Dr. Scott Bond, did a book about him, and he talked to, I think, even had on one of his podcasts, a lady who was in charge of him, one of the officers there, and they started him with, you get an extra pudding on your dessert tray or your lunch or dinner tray if you behave, or if you don't do this, or if you do this. Oh, I got an extra dessert. You got to start there. Just little baby steps. You get an extra phone call. You get more time prison visits, family visits. You got to start slowly. And that documentary, like, all right, you do whatever you want. That you can't do. Can't do that, because that was a disaster. But yeah, you slowly work things in.
So, I guess, like, how would they implement this? I mean, you say slowly, but I mean, let's just say we have one group who's in, a cell block, and they're actually, maintaining, because I would assume that this is all going to be dependent on the people who are there together, right? Because, if you had the same 10 guys with, we'll say you have 20 guys, and then, they're great, but then you bring in 10 different guys, and they might not be great anymore. So it's probably dependent on the people. But I mean, would you try to get a group of people who are doing well together, and then just slowly bring in one more or 5 more? I mean, how does it get implemented?
Yeah, I mean, there's different ways to do it. Again, it's still a new thing. There's not a set rule of how you start things, but you got to separate the group from the individual. Because you say, all right, as a group, if everybody behaves, like I just had Zachary Eggers on, he's somebody who, when he was, I think, 17 years old, killed his whole family, and just, not too long after that, killed one of his cellmates. He was on a podcast. We're talking about the same thing in Senate-Bay prisons. And what he said, he's in Arizona, which is notoriously the worst prisons, in America, for a long time, and still they're not the greatest. But he said they started that. They did an incentive. They got schooling, got counseling, privileges after privileges. It was going great. And until a murder happened, somebody killed somebody, screwed it for everybody. And it's been years since they brought it back. Well, that's one person screwed it for everybody, like you said. But to me, I would start individualistically. Start with, if you as a person don't get any write-ups for X amount of time, you get more phone calls. You get extra dessert, you get whatever privileges may be, but for the individual. So, because if the group screws it up, now you're going to cause more anger and violence, like has happened in his facility, because the majority of people were thoroughly enjoying the privileges that they had until one knucklehead screwed it up. Now they're being punished. They might not even bring that back anymore. They might just go back to where, typically it was before, back to being fear-based and just a horrible, horrible prison. But I think if you start in the individual aspect of it, so individually, you realize, oh, this is great. So if you screw up, all right, you screwed up. Well, you're beat. They're not. And now like jealousy. Oh man, I see him. He got all this extra food on the tray, or he spent more visitation time, more phone call time. He's allowed in the yard more. I get 1 hour a day, and this guy has 10 hours a day, freedom. Then I think jealousy might start kicking in a little bit, and then maybe that might help them incentive to come out, because it's all baby steps. Like I said, that's the failure of that documentary, was everything too quickly. So the whole group can mess up. But I think if you start with baby steps for individuals, and then other individuals say, oh, wow, that guy gets an extra couple hours on the yard. Oh, he gets more shower time. He gets a shower every day. Every day he gets a shower, not once a week. Then I think that'll slowly start building into a group mentality from like the outside in. I mean, if I was in charge of prison, that's probably the last thing you want is me in charge. But that's what I would do. I would start from the individual aspect of it, and then slowly build it so where one person can't screw everybody. So that's kind of I would kind of build from the outside in. They said, I don't know how specifically they do it, but I think to me, using wisdom, I think that's the way I would approach it.
Yeah. So there was a question earlier that I had up here on the screen. Somebody had asked if empathy can be taught. Molly asked if empathy could be taught. And that's a good question, right? I mean, I don't know that it can. And I mean, we're talking about narcissists too. And they always got to be the smartest person in the room. They've always got to, be in control. And I mean, you can't really, I remember asking a professor one time about, well, how can we, because I was told that you can't help a narcissist. There's no cure for that. And I was like, well, what if you got that narcissist to help other narcissists? And I think that's kind of what we were talking about briefly for a second. And she said, no, that won't work. But I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm kind of going a little bit outside of the question, but what do you think? Can empathy be taught?
Not to a psychopath. They don't have the ability to feel it. Now, it's a question I asked psychopaths when I come on the show, and what does empathy mean to you? And I had somebody on a couple of times. Robert Bardo killed actress Rebecca Schaefer in the 80s. He told me he's taking classes for empathy and a few other things. Oh, tell me about the classes. And what does empathy mean to you? You'll get a dictionary definition, but their brain doesn't work like that. You cannot. It's almost like saying, it's maybe not a perfect comparison, but I've used it before. You can't. If your brain doesn't work, let's say, I'm a straight man. If you told me I have to be gay tomorrow, my brain doesn't work like that. I don't have that urge. Or telling a gay man you have to be straight. It doesn't work. It's like you don't snap your finger. You can't teach me to be gay, and I can't teach you to be straight. Or whatever it may be. When your brain does not have the ability to feel empathy, I can't not. No matter what horrific story you tell me, I don't care if you're a family member. I don't care who you are. You can't tell me something horrific enough for me to feel your pain. No, you can't do it. I can tell you how to get out of your mess in a black and white kind of way. Oh, wow. I mean, I know that sucks. The story you just told me. Oh, what should I do? Well, do X, Y, and Z. Oh, my house burnt down. Okay. We got it. What's left? We get storage unit. We get this. You can move in this house. You can stay here with me. I can't feel your pain. I can't empathize with you. I'm not that person where I don't know how we're going to do this, but we're going to be arm in arm together. I'm going to be in the trenches with you, and I'm crying with you and feel your pain. It's impossible. Doesn't mean I can't help you out. Like I said, you don't have to be a psychopathic killer. You can just have psychopathy and still not have that. But you're Mr. Black and White. You're Mr. Fix It. I'm going to help fix it. I can't feel the pain. Sometimes that's a good thing because they're already looking at the solution. So it can be a good thing. But no, I mean, everybody that I asked, they'll give a good definition of empathy, but it's physically impossible because their brains don't work. The empathy button is gone. They don't have that. But people and you can tell just by talking about the victims. Somebody like David Berkowitz, where he'll cry his eyes out. If someone's trusting him enough, he trusts you enough to go into detail about the crimes. He does have empathy. Because you can see it, you can feel it. It's not fake tears. I mean, you can see by the way somebody's talking. You can empathize with their pain, versus somebody like a Jesperson or other serial killers that I had on my show, where you bring up the crimes, they're would you do it again if you get out of prison? Oh, well, I'll do it again because why wouldn't you commit crime again? Well, I don't want to go. I want to come back in here. nothing to do about the victims. And I don't want to destroy any more families. I don't want to do this or that, but if you have like Dana Gray, serial killer, she does empathetic. I'm the only podcast I think she's ever done. Because I've known her for many years, but we talk about life without parole. We talk about, things like that. But for the most part, you're only going to get a biblical definition. You want to get a dictionary definition. And there is nothing you can possibly say, not the wisest man in the world, to get you to feel something that your brain is incapable of receiving. It's just impossible. It's like instilling fear. Part of my book, The Story of You, they tried to instill fear. It was a psychopath, but not a murdering psychopath, just a wonderful woman. They never get, I think they called her E.M. That wasn't her name, just made a name up for her. They tried to instill fear. They brought her to the worst, most sadistic haunted houses in the world. Nothing. She laughed all the way through it. Her friends that went through it were terrified, screaming. They went to run out of their nothing. They brought her to a reptile store. Deadly snakes, venomous this, venomous that. No fear. Let them go. Oh, it kept trying to touch the tarantulas, and bring them out. And no fear at all. Watch the most horrific, gruesome clips from different movie scenes where people were like throwing up. People else were watching with. She's like, oh, what's the name of this movie? You can't. They tried. You can't instill fear in somebody who doesn't experience it. You can't give them empathy. It just doesn't work.
Something I've actually talked about before, and I don't know like how it fits into empathy, but I think there's like a form of empathy that psychopaths can at least understand. They can recognize when they're supposed to feel something, and then address it accordingly to what others would do. Kind of like an AI can understand empathy. It can't, but it can talk about it really well. And I think a lot of killers can at least like Bundy, I would think he understood empathy perfectly. He reacted perfectly to most people, so they didn't recognize how they thought he was just a normal guy.
That's why he's so successful.
Yeah. And I don't know what it's actually called, but it's kind of like a cognitive version of empathy where they can understand it. They can, respond in the correct way, but only because they understand it and are about to use it for their own personal gain, which brings it back to the narcissism.
Well, and not just that. I think it brings us to, these are masters of perception. They perceive how you're feeling, and they can perceive how they want you to react. That's what makes them master manipulators, master perceivers, like that. Just like a great detective. He can become that person he's interrogating to say anything he wants to hear to get them to talk. It almost like the same thing with different parallels, where there's such mastery over the person they're doing as far as perception-wise. They'll tell them anything they want to hear. Just like a narcissist. Now, they can experience, I want to say we're going to be empathy, but they can come to tears, legit tears, if they have personal loss. If a psychopath, his daughter dies or their dog dies, they're going to cry like a baby. But they're not crying. Let's say a husband and wife. Let's say that the father was a psychopathic murderer and their daughter had a horrific death. He's crying his eyes out for his personal loss, but he can't feel the pain of the wife. He's not where a husband will be crying all over the place, or a wife, because they're empathetic to the whole family. It's a big mess emotionally. Not them, but their personal loss. I lost my dog, weeping like a baby. Even most men aren't that empathetic. It's not like a woman where they're naturally more empathetic than men. So most men aren't even that empathetic in the first place, but let alone, have a psychopathy. But I don't care what kind of a Hell's Angel biker you are, you lose your dog, you're crying like a baby. I don't care how manly man you are, but that's the case with them. Personal loss, they'll feel that. So they have the emotion of sadness and crying and stuff like that, but don't confuse that with empathy, because they're not feeling the wife's loss. Or if you lost your wife, you're not feeling the pain of your daughter or child's loss for them losing their mother. That's what they're incapable of. So they can mask it, being master perceptors, because they can perceive how you want me to react right now, because they've done it their whole lives. They've done it since infancy. They've never had empathy. They know how they should react, and they know when to do it just because of mastery over the years. But people are like, oh, I saw him crying. I saw how emotional he was. Oh, he's so empathetic. No, he lost something that was his. It's that pride narcissistic crying, really, what is your lost personal something, nothing to do with empathy for anybody else. So yes, it does. It kind of all ties in like that.
I had never really considered it that way. It's the empathy for themselves and their personal loss. I mean, because I've
Mhm.
seen, people, killers. They seem remorseful. They're sad. They're crying. But I guess,
That they got caught.
yeah, they're sad that they got caught. They're
Yeah.
sad that they can't do it again. But they're not really sad for the victims and
Uh,
the pain that they caused.
yeah, they
Uh,
can't. They're incapable of it. They can read a court statement. I'm sorry for XYZ, XY, like BTK. If you can say all you want, I'm sorry for the victims, I apologize, I apologize. It's all fake. You can't. It's impossible. You're not sorry for nothing. You're only sorry that you got caught. That's it. You can say all you want. Now, there's certainly not everybody, not all serial killers or psychopaths. You can just snap for some reason. You can be a sociopath. Nothing to do with psychopathy or something traumatic happened or something. You just snap. And some other violent offenders who certainly could have empathy. Like David Berkowitz. Oh, he's a psychopath. No, that was really not. He does have empathy. He does have that. He does have fear. He does have those emotions. Yeah, but for the most, who I'm specifically talking about psychopaths, like I said, it's something that they'll never have. They can fake it, but something they can really never experience.
So, you just brought up a good point. Can you explain the difference between a sociopath and a psychopath? I mean, because
Mhm.
they basically kind of overlap a little bit, I think.
Sure. Hmm.
And I think a lot of people get confused on the difference between the two.
Yeah, a sociopath can be me and you. Something happens after we hang up this podcast and we do something else, some kind of traumatic event, and I just snap. I just lose it. I go nuts. I go on just a massive killing spree. Something caused it. I have a perfect brain. Well, people who know me might say something different, but I mean, I have an average brain, let's just say. Nothing psychopathy, about this. I have fear. I'm scared of everything. I have high anxiety. I'm a mess. But something can happen, or, I'm going to see my mom later today. I'm going to drive down to see her. I can go down there and I found out that somebody murdered her or something, and I could just snap. Or someone just starts treating me wrongly, or I go in a string of like 6 or 7 relationships where I get dumped on. I got robbed. My house gets robbed, or the girl robbed my money, or somebody ran over my dog. A string of events can happen. Aileen Wuornos is a perfect example of that. The years of abuse. All the men who beat the crap out of her, and she's a prostitute, the beatings she took, the lack of love from the family, all of that eventually snapped. That's a sociopath. Somebody born with psychopathy, you're born like that. And something might have happened also to kind of trigger it, but like a sociopath can be cured, because it's not a brain thing. I mean, it's a brain thing, but it's not like a brain abnormality. It's something that we can, through therapy and medicate, we can get you back on the right track. Psychopathy, there's no cure. Now there's baby steps. Like we know, for example, the countries that have the most amount of violent crime in the world eat the less fish. The ones who eat the least amount of violent crime eat 2 or 3 times their body weight in fish. So there's countless studies that have been done with omega-3 and like fish oil. They'll do like double-blind, or one's like a double-blind study, I think it was. Dr. Adrian Rain, actually, of Pennsylvania, out near my way, included him some of his studies in my book. They give, a bunch of violent offenders in prison. I don't know what number it was, but it was a bunch. 10 milligrams of fish oil, all right, in their juice, whatever it was. Now, let's say they gave it to 10 people, or 30 people. First 10 people knew they were getting it, and he really gave it to them. The second group of 10 people thought they were getting it, but secretly he didn't give them. He just gave them the juice. The third group was part of it, didn't give them anything. Only the group that actually had the fish oil, their write-ups and stuff over the course of a year or so went down. The other 2 groups who thought they had it and didn't get it, they stayed right where they were or got worse, whatever they did. So we know baby steps are working. There's some, there's electrodes you can, type on the brain to stimulate certain parts of the brain to help out. We know reward is a big thing. So we know there's baby steps, no cure. More like controlling and helping out a little bit, I guess you can say, in psychopathy and these violent offenders. So there's baby steps of what's working on a very minute level. So I wouldn't necessarily call it progress, but maybe baby minute step progress that we're seeing with them. But yeah, but it's wild. But there's studies out there. But I said Dr. Adrian Rain is probably one of the ones leading the way in that field, in that study anyway.
I think that's I think that was a good description. I guess when you think of psychopath, if you think of like the brain is physically not formed properly, that's a psychopath, most likely.
Yeah, or like a head injury. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but so they can be like psychopaths can't be cured. Although the baby steps we have, sociopaths were not born that way. They got a perfectly functioning brain, but some traumatic events, psychological abuse, something happened, torture, something happened where they snapped, but they can be cured. No matter what kind of killing spree they went on, they can be helped. They might not be able to, but by definition, by science, they can. Whereas psychopathy is, it's unless a miracle happens, it's impossible to. So psychopaths are born that way. Technically, sociopaths are made. That's the best way, simplistic way to say it.
That's a very good point. I've been reading on a lot of it's really boring stuff, I guess, but the different enzymes in your brain that affect different things. And when you mentioned fish oil, it made me wonder, what kinds of foods are we eating that have something that's mixing with our medications and causing people to snap that may have never done that before. I know we talked briefly about Chris Watts, but one of the things he was doing before this all happened, he was wearing these patches that were, vitamins, like energy things called Thrive, and, he wasn't sleeping good. He was losing weight, but he wasn't sleeping good. I mean, there's all kinds of things. And if I'm trying to think of an easy way to explain the studies that I've been reading, there isn't one. Just that they can actually monitor all kinds of hormones and enzymes and the way your brain works specifically.
They've been doing that for years. Another longitudinal study. I posted a lot of longitudinal studies in the book. I don't know if I don't think it was Adrian Rain, but somebody else did it. But they monitored a woman while she was pregnant. Up until, not just one, I should say, probably almost 60 or 70 women, a lot of women, up until the late teens. From in utero to in the late teens, tons of women, primarily what they were doing while they were pregnant. And what we see from the lack of vitamins they were putting in, what was going to increase the odds that a child would become a violent offender, not necessarily a psychopath, but just the nutrition they were putting in. It played a 33% chance a child would become a violent offender if the mother was smoking, say, every puff of a cigarette that a mother takes while pregnant is lack of oxygen to the child's brain. That increases the odds. Now, she's a single mother. She's not getting the nutrition, a horrible diet mixed with alcohol, mixed with drugs. If you are inside a mother, if you are in the womb of a mother who smokes a pack or two a day, she's a fairly heavy drinker, she's a drug addict, no nutrition, the child's going to have no chance, no loving surrounding family. You're basically going to be an unwanted child. There's over 70% chance that child become a violent offender. So diet, nutrition has a drastic play. Just that alone has a big impact on it, let alone everything else. Just while pregnant in that environment, everything that a mother does even while pregnant increases that child's odds. So I think nutrition is definitely a vital role. Now, I don't know, once you're a grown man, what you're putting in your body is going to make you snap and want to kill somebody. That I don't know. I mean, could be, certainly. You never know what's in the crap nowadays in somebody's food, especially in America, and the additives and all the stuff that they put in there. But certainly, when it's all tied together, when you reverse somebody's life, like Chris Watts' life from the beginning, we'd have, if we had a microscope and we have inside his brain all the way through, I'm sure there was a hell of a lot of things to find out, what made him the way he was. Could that be the final trigger? Something he was taking could be the final trigger, but I'm sure that wasn't the sole reason why he did what he did. I'm sure he goes way, way, way deeper than that, but contributing it to it, sure. A lot of studies have been done of just what a horrible nutrition diet while mother's pregnant, after the child's born, that already has your effects. That already has affected your brain. The lack of growth to the brain. I mean, there's so many issues. Again, from cigarette smoking to drinking, a child with fetal alcohol syndrome, born drunk, born on drugs. That's a 70% chance that child has no shot of being a productive member of society from the mother's choices. Let alone. So my big thing of why people say, why I'm compassionate for some of these men and women, you're that child. You were just born fetal alcohol syndrome. We can see it in your face. You were born addicted to crack. No nutrition. You never had an apple in your life. The mother, it was nothing but Twinkies and crack her whole while you were pregnant. Now a child's born with this over almost an 80% chance you have no shot at being a productive member of society. You're going to be a very high percentage going to be a violent offender. Before you're a teenager, you're already committing crimes. Now all of a sudden you're standing before a judge. Now you're 18, charged as an adult, and we're not blaming the parents. We're not looking back, oh, that child's evil. Well, let's take a step back and let's see how we got here. Let's just not say the child's evil. Yeah, he did some horrible things. He needs to be, punished. We need to, help get some rehabilitation in him. But let's take a step back. So recently, over the past 5 or 6 years, we've seen parents specifically mothers arrested because they gave birth to a son who's on drugs, who's an alcoholic. She's getting charged now. So hopefully, like the book, The Story of You, like I mentioned, I wrote, the last chapter is called The Story of You, Y-O-U. Like, what can we do about this? Now, how about we start reaching out to single mothers, who have little money, might have an addictive problem. Let's get some information in our hands. Let's help out. Let's donate some food. Let's donate some vitamins. Let's help care for the child. Let's get them involved in sports and community activities and things like that, especially when there's not a father around. That's the biggest thing here in the South Jersey, Camden, Philadelphia area. Child's born without a father figure. Well, they don't know who the father is. You might have 6 brothers and sisters with all different fathers. So you're going to find a father figure. That's how we're religious or not. You need a father. You're going to reach out for that father figure. Your mom can't be both. She can. There's rock star moms, single moms out there. There are rock star single moms. Child needs a father, and he's going to seek that father figure. Now, if you're in a gang-ridden streets, you're going to be seeking out the men there. Well, guess what? He's a drug addict. He's a gangster. He's a pimp. You're going to conform to that lifestyle growing up. So what can we do about it? Start reaching out, be that father figure, be that mentor, find people who are in that situation and be a blessing to them, help them out. Don't just say, oh, he's an 18-year-old kid. He did a crime. You go to jail. Screw him. Well, rewind that. He was your neighbor. You knew that kid. You could have did something to help him out. So I promote that too. It's a big reason why I do what I do, to help promote positive change in people's lives. And we all can make a difference one way or another.
Something that just occurred to me, we talk about the alcohol, the cigarettes and stuff like that. But what about the emotional side of things as being a pregnant mother, somebody who's feeling fear all the time? That sends different signals throughout the brain. And I mean, some of it's got to transfer to the child before it's even born. And that, I think that's kind of interesting. I never really considered that before.
In the formative years, when that child's that young, in that environment, your children, when their brains are forming, quickly, a rapid age, when they're younger like that, as they're developing in preteens and as they're growing up, that 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, they're absorbing all of that in. All that, all that's seen around you. When the mother, when the mother doesn't want you, you sense it, you feel that. And if you've never experienced a mother's love, you don't know how to give a mother's love. So all of that when you were younger and when we were babies and children, it all stems from that. That's why some of the most famous serial killers, the Edward Kempers of the world, mommy issues. They never felt, people almost like make a joke about it. Oh, it was mommy issues. Yeah. There's a reason most serial killers have mommy issues, and they killed a whole bunch of women because they're killing their mother over and over and over again because they didn't get the love that they deserved. Is that right? No, it's a horrible thing. It's the stupidest thing in the world. But their brains don't work like ours. But it stems from, that's what they were taught from a young age. The Ed Geins of the world. His name's been popular for the shows that are about him lately. A horrible show, but that's a whole other story. But from that, what the mother does from a young age, we crave the love from a mother and a father. We do everything we want to please, 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 please. And sometimes we start adapting with how they're doing it. That's why abusers typically were abused. You don't usually come from a perfectly loving, Christian family or Jewish, whatever faith it is, but a legit, loving, comforting family, and turn into a violent serial killer. It can, it can happen, but usually it's rooted in a dreadful relationship with your parents. You never experienced love, felt love, understand love, and then it's went crazy from there.
Yeah. I was actually talking more like a pregnant woman. So the baby hasn't been born yet. If they're in an abusive relationship, I think that's more what I was talking about, like the hormones that are produced in her body with the baby in her womb could also, I mean, obviously everything you said about after they're born, that is 100% true. There's lots of studies on that. But I haven't really heard too much about, the prenatal, like the before they're born stuff. Because I know with like Ozempic, people are losing weight with Ozempic. And I was listening to something on YouTube the other day that was like, well, now these food companies are going to be adding preservatives that kind of counter the whatever Ozempic does to make people not hungry, because they're losing money on the food that they're not selling anymore because people aren't as hungry. I mean, it's crazy to think of, but I mean, there's a lot of like subtle things that affect a person.
Big time.
And, I mean, most Americans are on at least one medication, at least one. And you don't know, like I'm drinking Celsius energy drinks. I mean, this could affect that. I mean, maybe in me, but maybe not in you. I mean, there's a lot of like like there's just not enough. There isn't a way for us to like identify exactly what's happening to one specific person yet. We have to look at everything as broad, as a group kind of scenario, and they can pick out some stuff. But hopefully in the future they will be able to do this thing and see what works for you specifically.
Now, there was studies done. I posted one in my book. I don't know exactly where it is, where I could pull it out, where I believe it was a time of work. I don't remember what country the study came from. I forget. But it was from a poverty. They studied over the course. I think they had to fill out a form before they went to to serve in their military, if I'm not mistaken. And they examined people, again, like a longitudinal studies, which are my favorite, because you really look at a course of from utero all the way to adulthood until the time they enlisted, And they looked at people from a poverty-stricken area, no nutrition, no nothing, versus place that had a great vitamin, good balanced diet. The poverty-stricken ones, the ones who ended up with a criminal record, the vast majority came from that section. But everything, similar to same, obviously the upbringing a little bit different, but they really focused on nutritional value. That was like the point of the study. And yeah, more crimes were coming out of people that had less nutritional value in their diet, that teenage years, so to speak, up until you can do on your own. The vast majority were coming from those when they were pregnant. They did not have anything nutritional for the mother, while they were pregnant. So there have been studies done, not specific, every detail of what nutritional, like what type of vitamins are coming in. They just went from a balanced diet, because this is done back, in the 20s and 30s. I think it was, a long time ago. So there has been some studies similar to that done. And all the time it has been shown, yes, you were pregnant with a mother, or when you were pregnant inside a mother with no nutritional value, it did increase the odds that the child was not going to be a well-functioning member of society. There's going to be some issues there. I mean, that's just with the nutritional study. So there have been things been done, not to the detail that you're talking about, but it's very similar.
Yeah, I find all of that stuff interesting. I like looking at the subtle details and try to figure out kind of look at the big picture, but I try to start at the small places and kind of build from there. But I think, I don't know, I've got some more questions. We could talk about this guy some more if you want to. Not that anything we just talked about wasn't very interesting. I love all of it. But the idea was we were going to talk about him. Went the wrong way. So Jesperson was oddly proud of his incentive system in prison. Did you get the sense that he's actually reformed, or is it just some sort of coping mechanism for him while he's in prison? Something, Well,
it kind of ties into exactly what we're talking about. He likes his reward, and he does not want to lose his reward. Because he's not in general pop. Well, he was in general for a little while, because they had some plumbing issues, in the honor unit. But he's back in the honor unit. It's about almost a year. He's back in general population. It's horrible there. Compared to, you have a phone, you can use all you want. You got tablets you can use. Again, you got the putt-putt golf course, you got the pickleball, you got almost like a little swimming poolish area back to the side. He doesn't want to lose any of that. And that's the sole reason. There's no rehabilitation at all. He's exactly the same person he was when he was arrested. There is no difference. He said numerous times, like I said before, that if you got out again, there is like a 1% chance you might be transferred to Canada, to a prison up there, which is even a little bit better than his. Almost no chance, but a baby chance. But no, he does not want to go back to general population. Doesn't want to go back to that, because he loses all the privileges. Like I said, you see the artwork behind me. I probably have, 20 or 30 pieces of artwork that he sent me over the years. He loves to do his artwork. He doesn't want to be stripped of his supplies, the access that he has to, all these other things. He was doing a lot of laundry. He had a job. I think he retired from the job. I don't think he went back. He's getting older. He's not in the greatest health anymore. But nothing to do with rehabilitation. It's all about reward, and I do not want to lose my reward. Well, that's it. At least for him anyway.
Mm-hmm. So with as many people as you have talked to in prisons, in various prisons, what's the main thing that they all have in common, as far as the facility itself goes, other than just being locked in a cell? I mean, you know what I mean? There's got to be, how do they, let me think of a good question. For example, this guy's got this type of prison where he's got the putt-putt golf course,
Mhm.
but most prisons probably don't have that. I mean, so what is something that they all could have but don't and probably want? I mean,
Mhm.
just more freedom, you think? Or
I would say probably the biggest thing is more time in the yard, more yard time. William Howell, another guy who has 8 victims. He's been on my podcast too. I've known him for a long time. At his facility in Connecticut, Cheshire in Connecticut, very rarely do they get yard time. If they do, one person calls out sick, a guard, let's say, which they always do. Oh, we're not fully staffed. We can't go out. They're stuck all day long inside. Even when you go to the yard, just looking at concrete and buildings, they can't even see trees or anything else. And so when he gets transferred to the hospital, get checkups, you can see grass. He's like the greatest thing in the world. Just I can see grass and I can see a tree. But for most of them, would be more time on the yard, more time outside of, not just outside of the cell, like into the day room area, but outside getting some fresh air. That's probably the biggest thing that they'd say. We would love to have that. Just more time outside, because a lot of places you're limited. Now, if someone's on like death row in San Quentin, you're maybe an hour a day, and some of them you couldn't even be around other people. Sometimes you have your own little cage to go outside in. But I think that would be a big benefit. Zachary Egger, so I just thought on my show, and before that, Andrew Elmaker, very mentally ill, like delusional. I mean, very, very mentally ill. Just wants somebody to talk to, like professional. He got privileges taken away and thrown in a hole. Beat somebody badly, almost killed him. And he told him, "I need somebody to talk to, because I'm not feeling right. I'm not, something's wrong. I need somebody to talk to. Nope, we can't talk to you individually. We only do the 1 week, or I don't know, it was once a week, once every other week in a group session. Listen, I need somebody to talk to now. Nope, we can't allow it. All right, well, I'm not going to be held responsible and beat somebody to enter their life." So people to talk to when they need somebody to talk to would be another big thing to do. And it's the same, because most psychologists at prison, they don't want to be there. They want to have a practice. They want to be anywhere else but a prison. And most prison facilities, believe it or not, they'll tell them, don't prescribe them anything that we didn't already prescribe them. Don't diagnose them with something they're not already diagnosed with. Basically, don't help them. What are they going to do? They're just going to listen. There's nothing they can do. They don't want to be there anyway. Not all of them, sir. I want to, categorize every single one of them, but a lot of them. So more time outside, getting some fresh air. Obviously, better food. I mean, some of the places like Arizona still serve the Red Death. They don't know what the Red Death is. It's a bag that says not for human consumption. So they're going to get their sloppy joes, they're going to get their beans, they're going to get their mystery meat. Now, that's the stuff that they make the bad dog food from, like Alpo, not the good dog food, the all natural dog food, like I spoiled my dogs with, the expensive crap. They're getting the Alpo. Well, I mean, hopefully Alpo is better. I don't know, back in the day it was crap. But that's what they make dog food out of. That's what they eat. So better food. And they're not asking for filet mignon. Just some basics, just something. Give me some type of nutrition, just some basic stuff. So better food, more time in the yard, and help, professional help, somebody to talk to that actually cares about them. That'd be the main thing. Because there's this from me, I mean, the biggest thing that I do and help improve in their lives a little bit, like William Howell, use him for example. When I started reaching out to him, there is somebody more suicidal than he was. Our first month of conversation was me looking up do not resuscitate laws for him in Connecticut. Like if he found a way to really seriously injure himself, can they still resuscitate me? That's what our conversation was, like the most dark and gloomiest things ever. But he found out that he woke up in the morning looking for the email. I wonder if Keith said hello today. I got him a couple other pen pals who wanted to, try to help him out too. One was a female. And his joy now, he's waking up, I wonder if I get emails today. So he went from wanting to kill himself every single day to being actually happy. To happy being waking up. He dressed up for Halloween. Actually sent me his Halloween costume. I got a Halloween costume. He sent me just upstairs, which is crazy. But now found meaning in life. Now I can wake up. Maybe I can help somebody else, by coming on a podcast or, encouraging other people not to make the same mistakes I did. Well, again, a sociopath. He snapped one day. But now he has meaning to wake up. He has reason to wake up. This simple things like that to somebody to talk to, so that goes a long way in helping out. Let alone a professional. Lord, I'm not a professional. I just, I just do it a lot. I'm just there as, to encourage. That's all I do. But going from somebody who wants to kill themselves every single day to somebody now who experiences joy. And that's just me. That's just me reaching out to another dude, unprofessional, I'm not doctorate of nothing. with just kindness, just trying to help these people out to see what works. Now, everything I do is for mental health awareness, to see what works. I don't just have some serial killer, fixation or anything like that. It might be something a little morbid to me, I guess, because I collect artwork. They send me things and I hang them on the walls. There's probably something wrong with me, I'm sure. But the main gist of it is mental health awareness. What works in rehabilitation in psychopathy or extreme violent offenders, mostly sociopaths, pretty much primarily that I talk to. What has helped them turn their lives around in prison so they can be a help to other people. So I'm constantly getting messages from psychologists, from TV producers, and everybody saying, "How did you get them to talk?" I've been trying for years, never wrote back to me. And I told them, I don't want anything from them. I'm just trying to help, help encourage them so they can be a better person in there. So in turn, we can learn from that and they can help other people. Like John Douglas, who the show Criminal Minds was based off of. Netflix show, one of my favorite series ever, called Mindhunter, was about John Douglas, was the first person and his team to really interview serial killers to find out how they worked, how they thought, how they planned things. Ed Kemper, the Berkowitzes, everybody, Charles Manson even. And in order to help profile and catch and prevent future crimes. That's what I do. Smaller level, completely different, not the genius like those guys are. But that's the gist of why I do what I do, to learn so much more about psychopathy, sociopaths, what works, what doesn't work, and obviously tying into this into the prison system, how we can change the prison system around to also help prevent future crime. And that's all the reason I do, is a platform to help prevent future crime and mental health awareness.
That's really pretty interesting. I've always been the type that's like, oh, they're in prison, they should be suffering. They did some horrible things, and I hadn't really considered. I mean, I guess I kind of considered it before. Maybe they shouldn't be suffering so much. I mean, I wouldn't want to be the person making them suffer. But at some level, I'm okay with them suffering. You know what I mean?
Most people are. I get it. I'm not going to, I said, I'll make an argument against it for why I do what I do. Because people from the outside just looking in from blindly at what I do, that guy's nuts. He likes talking to serial killers. Obviously, we just thought it goes way deeper than that. Like if someone like yourself gives me an honest platform, to share why I do what I do, a little different. Okay. Even if you don't agree with what I do, I get it. At least I understand it now. And for some people, maybe still like yourself, I get it, understand it. I still want to assume to suffer. Okay. I get it, of course. Yeah. That would be most people, the first thing they thought. But I said, when you really break it down, like that's the best analogy, like I gave earlier. Well, what if he's going to get out of prison and he's your neighbor? Now, who do you want to come out of prison? That suffering dude who's ready to kill the world, or somebody now who knows about rehabilitation? So that's the gist of my argument. Yeah. Like I said, but I get it. I totally understand.
So like one of the things you mentioned, like the yard time, the food conditions, and contact with some kind of therapist, or even a suicide prevention line or something. Of those three things, the going out to the yard seems like the only one that doesn't cost money. Why can't they go outside? I mean, what does it take for them to put people out in the yard? Is it just there's so many of them that only little sections can go at a certain time for a certain amount of time? Or is there not enough guards to like take everyone out there? What's going on with that?
It's usually just a control thing. I mean, the same amount of guards watching them in the day room is the same amount of guards going to be watching them outside. So what's the difference? It's not. It's just a punishment toy control thing. There is no reason for it. It's absolutely ridiculous. At least at his facility anyway, he's probably one of the worst ones that I've seen, where a guy wakes up, there's a little wet right there. There's it snowed. So there's a little bit of ice in the corner. You can't go out. Well, that little bit of ice and snow in a Connecticut winter is going to be there all year, all winter time. There's pallets of salt, by the way, at their facility. Pallets of salt to melt the snow. We're short staffed. We don't have anybody to go get the salt. You can't go 10 minutes, get a bag of salt, throw it on the ground so the guys can go outside. Nope, can't do it. Pallets of salt at the facility. Nope, can't do it. So they might not go outside for a month because a little bit of snow and a little bit of ice on the ground.
That seems like, I don't know. I mean, it seems like there's got to be something that's like, I mean, I guess if you're moving prisoners, there's always a risk of one of the officers getting hurt. Maybe that, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I would really hope it's not just that,
it's just that. That's it. They'll say short-staffed. I mean, their official answer is short-staffed. But come on, you can't. One person, you can't get a bag of salt. That you already have. You don't even have to buy. I mean, come on. Some of these prison facilities, they're telling me, oh, it's $60,000 per inmate. You're feeding them dog food, and there's no medical. Where's the rest of the money going? It should be for the inmate itself. So it's ridiculous. I mean, some states certainly have more towards others. The higher income states, they might get $60,000, $70,000, per inmate. Some of the more backwoods areas of the country, they may only get $25,000 per inmate, $30,000 per inmate. But to say you can't go to the yard because there's a little bit of ice on the side, when you're full staffed, but now you're too short staffed to go grab the bag of ice to get rid of the bag of salt to get rid of the ice. So it's punishment and fear tactics. It's torturous on a lot of aspects of it, as crazy as it sounds.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine what it would be like to be in prison. I know what it's like to be isolated. Like I'll stay in my little room for days sometimes, but just knowing that I could walk outside,
exactly. It's the knowledge.
I just don't know what it feels like to not be able to have that thought. Well, I could just go outside. I mean, they can't even go outside their cell.
And no windows, no nothing. You can't. Not some of them do, but most of them don't. Just a little block about as big as the area I'm looking at you in. That's their prison. Maybe 6x8 cell, 6x9 cell.
Like smaller than my bathroom, probably. That would be where they live.
Some of them, yeah. And you got a roommate.
Oh. And they have a roommate. That's
who you don't like, and they don't like you, and you're afraid to go to sleep because they're gonna steal from you. They'll kill you. They're from a different gang. Yeah, it's not pleasant.
Wow. So, which prison is the worst prison in the U.S.?
I would say, as I said, I'm not familiar with all the states. I'm mostly familiar with those in California because that's mostly where most of the nuts are, so to speak. But I would say, over the years, Arizona is probably known as the worst place. I mean, I might be correct on that because I don't know all of them. But back when Crazy Joe Arpaio was sheriff in the facilities, made the news all the time. He would there's Arizona heat. And we're talking about 120, 130 degrees outside, in summer days. He forced them to sleep outside on the blacktop. He put a couple tents out there. You live out there. Their sneakers would melt on the blacktop. And all he would say is, "Oh, we got guys over in Iraq fighting for our freedom. They're out there in 120 degree heat. These guys can do it." He was the worst. He was absolutely the worst with the discipline, with the air conditioners to get these. The air conditioners are off. They won't put them on in the summertime until a politician or somebody important comes. Oh, crank them up. Oh, it's nice. And look how cool it is in here. Look at these conditions are great. They leave. Oh, air conditioners off. So yeah, Arizona. In my experience, because I don't know, certainly I don't know all of them, but I think Arizona, notoriously over the years, has been the worst.
Yeah, it makes sense with the heat, especially. There's YouTube videos out there of people baking cookies in their cars. You just instead of putting it in the oven, you just go stick it in the dash of your car, and an hour later, boom, you got cookies. I mean, it's hot there. My kids live there. And I mean, there's always, every year, there's deaths from people being left in cars. I mean, the idea that they're putting them out on a blacktop too, it's kind of, that's got to be painful. I mean, the ground alone is going to be burning hot.
Literally melts your shoes. It melted shoes. You can see videos of it online. That's what he thought of. He was there for years. He was just a crooked man, horrible man. They love him though. It's Crazy Joe. Go get him, Joe. But it has gotten better since he left. But it's still, Arizona's still not the place you want to be. That's for sure. Not that any prison is. Again, there's some more incentive based than others, but it's still prison. It still sucks no matter way you look at it. But over the years, I've known Arizona to be the worst.
So let's go through some of these other serial killers that I've got here. Oh, there we go. Joseph Michael
Neeson.
I don't know how to Neeson.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, let's talk about him for a minute.
And him, I've only recently gotten to know him. He came on the podcast recently too. Usually I get to know somebody because the podcast is not why I bring people, build relationships up with people. Never really talk. Now, most of these guys, most of these men and women, we don't talk about the case. Very few. Jesperson's actually one of the few where we went into great detail about every single one of the murders, where he found them, how he killed them, how he disposed of the body. Great detail, because that's what he wanted to do. Cross-dressing cannibal, Haddon Clark. Great detail about the murders, because he's never really spoken too publicly about that before. But for the most part, I don't care about the crimes. Like, I don't care about learning the details about the crimes, I should say. And so Joseph was one of them. We never talked to him about any of the crimes. It's just about trying to, encourage him to stay strong, how he can help other people, how he's helping other people at his prison facility. Like San Quentin prison, notorious San Quentin prison. They recently got rid of the death row inmates, where they put in the moratorium on death row, or the death penalty, I should say. And everybody, they didn't have like severe mental issues. They transferred out to different facilities. Neeson was one of them, along with David Carpenter, Michael Wisenhunt, and a whole bunch, Wesley Shermantine, Speed Freak Killer, and a whole bunch of different, Martin Kipp. That's where you know what Charles Manson was, Richard Ramirez was. So they transferred him over. So he's at a facility now, a California healthcare facility, with others, like with David Carpenter, one of the oldest serial killers alive today. And he's actually helping other people, in the facility, encouraging them, wheelchairing them around, helping people out, doing some artwork. I just helped get him a TV. He got a bunch of artwork that he sent me, tons of pieces of artwork he just sent. I have in the other room. But case-wise, I'm not too familiar, about the ins and outs, all the details about this case. Basically, just who he is now, the man he's trying to be now, trying to help other people. But it's a fairly new relationship. I would say just this past year, I've known him.
Yeah. One of the things I do when I look up these killers, I try to find the basic, overview of what happened. But I also don't really like the details either, especially like the specific details. Like I prefer to just kind of glaze over what actually happened and just talk about why it happened. But I mean, this guy, he killed at least 3 people, right?
Yeah, suspected of more, but a few for sure.
He would target the same type of people, the marginalized people, runaways, young teens, especially low visibility victims, essentially. He would strangle them and hide the bodies. I think there's no death penalty in California anymore, right? Or is that?
Well, they put it on hold, so to speak. As I say, put a moratorium on it. So officially right now, no, but it can be put back instantly, because they went from like a level, I think it was like level 5, whatever it is. But basically most of the guys went to like a level 3, level 2 facility, where it's like a cakewalk. It's like Club Med where they're at now versus San Quentin, which is the death row, which is the worst you can possibly go. When they get transferred off, it's not quite incentive based, but it's like it's there. It's very not minimum security, but from what they're used to, it's like Club Med. We're at the California healthcare facility.
Yeah. So Hayden Irving Clark.
The cross-dressing cannibal.
Yeah.
He's special. That's a special.
I don't know a lot about him either. Like the cross-dressing thing. I mean, that's a little weird.
Yeah.
But BTA did stuff like that too, sort of.
It was a little bit different with Haddon. From infancy, his mother, who was schizophrenic. Schizophrenia runs rampant in the family. His brother, his mother, obviously himself. He was forced to wear a woman's clothing when he was younger. Kind of not like it is today, a little bit more of a liberal society. Hey, you want to dress like a girl, transgender? A little bit different. It was different back then. You don't do that back then. It really mentally broke him as a child. And along with all the other mental illness he has, the severe abuse by his mother, horrible mental abuse. He's only comfortable really wearing women's clothes most of his life now, just because from infancy it was instilled in him. Almost like a torture kind of a thing. Again, different in our culture, is a little bit different now. Different motivations, I guess you can say, behind it, whether you agree or not agree with that kind of a thing. But with him, mental illness is so strong. And with him, I mean, it's hard to have. I mean, I've been doing this for a while. I know how to talk to somebody who's seeing things and hallucinating and has psychopathy and arts. I just know how to talk. I can get you to talk to me. I can understand you a little bit. It's challenging to talk to him. Because in one aspect of it, Like he has sent me, honestly, just from him alone, I probably have 500 or 600 pieces of artwork that just Haddon has sent me, along with personal items. But with Haddon, you don't know what he's going to send. I've gotten Band-Aids before. Oh, this is from my COVID shot, and a little photocopy of the COVID shot that he has. I have a plastic spoons with little crumbs on it. I have a piece of artwork. He drew his face on it, shaved his beard hair, put it in a plastic bag. Hey, now you can put my hair on my face to make it complete. He has sent me used toothbrushes, used earwax. I have glasses from him, a yarmulke hat. He's not even a Jewish person. Boxer short. I never know what's going to come in the mail with Haddon. But part of his mentality, and with the artwork, most of it's a little girl doing sign language, because you know sign language. So he kind of still identifies, I think, as that little girl. And that's kind of how he views himself now a lot. But it's a severe mental illness. I got him on a podcast twice, I think 3 times, I think. Michael Bay, a famous director, like the Transformers and some other stuff, recently did a series about him. And he had an agreement with Haddon to talk about the murders for the first time publicly. They had some kind of an agreement that apparently Michael Bay did not do or not agree with. And that's why he didn't talk about the crimes. So if you see that documentary, I think Evil Lives Here, I think it was called, doesn't talk about the crimes. It just mostly is police interrogation videos and him talking about, not so much the murder so much. But he was so pissed off with Michael Bay, he sent me a letter saying, hey, I want to come on your podcast to talk about the murders because I didn't want it, because Michael screwed me over on the deal. I'll come on your podcast. So he came on my podcast to talk about the murders. So he drew me pictures of the murders, of the murder scene, or what went down, why it went down. Those he was suspected of killing, which no one really believes he did, because other people have, confessed to it and got arrested for it. But pictures of that, like cartoonish, kind of pictures and stuff. But it was mind-blowing hearing him talk. And that was a more uncomfortable one because we're talking about death of children. And that's why, people really get freaked out. Like he's the boogeyman to a lot of people because of his crimes, the way he did it. And he even said, people would piss me off. Like the reason he killed the one girl, Michelle Dorr, I think last name was, because her father cut him off on the road on his car. He was driving his bike, cut him off a little bit. He's like, I'll get you. He said people pissed him off before. He went and killed their dog. He found out what was special to you, and he killed it. An animal, usually. In this case, it was his daughter. And that's why she was killed, because getting back at the father, because the father cut him off on the car while he was driving his bike, cut him off a little bit. And yeah, but his mentality is, it's hard to keep a conversation with him because he'll go down like so many different roads. But that was a little tricky one to listen to, for sure.
That's definitely disturbing. It kind of makes you not want to cut somebody off.
You never know. That's the thing. You never know who you're talking to or, who you're in contact with. Mm-hmm. Especially with road rage.
Yeah. That guy is pretty scary sounding. So like he would just, well, let me see. I was going to ask you, well, why does he kill? But it's just that simple. Just because he got irritated with something and he just found what you love and killed him.
Mm-hmm. That was a gist behind it. She also called him retarded. Little Michelle called him retarded, which upset him, but he's probably going to take it anyway. The other one where he, I forget the lady's name, but Laura, what's her last name? One of the victims, Laura, her mother, who was the gardener, kind of helped her out in her house here and there. And he looked at her as a mother because obviously his mother was, very mentally unstable. Helped him out a lot, gave him a job gardening. Well, when the daughter came home, I think came home from college, Laura Hotlinger was the name. She didn't like Haddon. She realized right away, this guy has some issues. So she lied and say that a piece of jewelry was stolen and I found it in Haddon's drawer or something like that. So it got Haddon fired because she lied to the mother saying Haddon stole something when Haddon never stole something. So that was the end of her life. And that was real disturbing too, because he said when he came into the house and tied her up, made her do some horrible things. And he went into detail about the horrible things he did. And you can listen to the podcast if you want to hear. I ain't gonna say them here. To her, and made her, some things she had to do to herself. And I would say, luckily for her, she died there because his plan was to take her in the woods and do more horrible things to her. He put duct tape around her mouth, and his answer was accidentally killed her because the tape went around her nose and her mouth. He didn't mean to do it. And when he went to slice the tape off, he cut her ear, and the ear was bleeding profusely. That's where all the blood came from. He says, and the same thing he said with Michelle Dorr. He didn't mean to kill her. Well, he was going to, more than likely, but he he took her, kidnapped her, and put her in down like in a little basement, like an outside basement. I forget what you would have called that. It's in the ground with the Bilko basement door, and basically she starved and suffocated to death because he can go back to the house because the police started tailing him. But with her, Laura Hotlinger said accidentally killed her because the duct tape was on her mouth and the nose. But he did say he was planning to do a lot horrible things to her in the woods, but she died before she got there, which luckily I should say, because it would have been a lot worse. Like that was beneficial for her to die from that suffocation to what he already did some horrible things to her there, but what he had planned for her in the woods would have been really horrific. But if you talk to him, you would never know that. It just seems like a little slow, like mentally, you know something's a little wrong, but you would think he was the most harmless person in the world. You would never expect something like him to do the horrific things and just things mentally, what he was coming up with in his mind to do with the poor little girls. But you never know from talking. You know something's wrong, but you would never, like most guys have on my show. They'll laugh and tell jokes and everything else, but you would absolutely never know they're the type of person that they are just from listening to them. But they all have that button. Turn that button on, then it's over.
So one thing I'm wondering though is like the cross-dressing. How did that play into his crimes? I mean, it sounds like maybe it didn't have anything to do with it, or
not
maybe
really. No, it's just comfortable wearing women's clothing. That's it.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. I mean, I guess it makes sense that it's not something, but I mean, the stress of having to wear them as a kid could have caused some of the,
big time.
Yeah.
Sure. And the torture. He was in the Navy for a while, but again, he would wear women's clothing. He got mocked and made fun of his entire life. To this day, even in prison, they still make fun of him. He says he's strong enough mentally now to just, he doesn't bother. I'm sure it does. I mean, it would probably stemmed all of this, back from childhood. But no, he still gets abused. He's still comfortable only wearing women's clothing. If you could Google his name, you'll see him wearing wigs. And he said, I'll show you where the bodies are. But you got to buy me some women's clothing. You got a wig and you got to buy me some things where I'm comfortable. And then I'll tell you, I'll give you more information. And that's what they did. But that's.
They let him wear women's clothing in prison.
You can see there's pictures of him handcuffed with a women's wig on and women's underwear. You can't see it, but women's underwear and the bra like underneath. But yeah, you can. There's plenty of pictures on Google. You can see of them and dressed like that in handcuffs.
That's interesting.
Oh yeah, it's interesting.
So Wayne Adam Ford.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about him.
Yeah, he was interesting. He was somebody I was dying to get to know. I shouldn't say dying. That's probably a bad time on this podcast, I think. But he's nicknamed the serial killer with compassion because he did some horrific things to a lot of women, dismemberment, and all kind of horrible things, but knew he was mentally ill, knew he couldn't stop himself, so he turned himself in. Went to his brother, kind of told him, "Hey, I got to turn myself in." I think he went to the zoo, went to see a movie that day, and eventually turned himself in. And what's wild is because while he's at the station admitting to these crimes, the police didn't believe him. Nah, you're not that guy. You're not that guy. So in his pocket, he pulled out a plastic bag with a woman's breast. Here you go. That's Wayne Adam Ford. It's me. Okay, well, hands behind your back kind of thing. But I knew I wanted to get to know him. Not because he said he was a Christian, but because he knew he was mentally ill. He knew he couldn't stop. He turned himself in. That's the guy on one of my podcasts because you can help other people. Like I mentioned earlier, how he's to this day, he's still helping a bunch of people who have similar thoughts that he has that doctors are not helping. The medicine is not helping. One person that he's talking to, helping out, trying to encourage them not to kill, not to eat people, stop torching your own body, burning your own body, slicing your own body, trying to help them out. When somebody, let me phrase this. When I knew he wanted to help other people by turning himself in to help him not kill people, he instantly, once we built a relationship up, wanted to come on a podcast to talk about what has worked for him. Because the people that he is helping is making tremendous strides for. Because again, he can relate to them on a level that I can't. When they say something, when they, might get frustrated when I'm talking to them about something. So-and-so got a little frustrated because I said this. Like, oh, that's because, let me talk to them. I know why. On levels that we can't even imagine, he connects to them. And whatever he's saying to them is working. He's calming them down, helping with, now they not the same medicine, that they have, because the one, for example, has not just, I'm assuming psychopathy. I'm assuming that, but also there's a word for it. It escapes me, the condition, but the inability to feel joy. So you're a psychopath who wants to eat people. You want to have a baby so you can eat the baby, not even exaggerating, and do other horrible, horrible things to people, and you don't have the experience to feel joy. And I saw that right away. She didn't really believe me. The doctors didn't see it until she failed her driver's test for the first time. When she retook it and passed, she was expecting for the first time in her life to feel this overwhelming joy. I passed. Nothing. On top of that, she had sex for the first time, has an STD, has herpes, not curable. So now she can't really have sex again without, damaging somebody else. Inability to feel joy. You have psychopathy, the urge to do horrible, horrible things, and you just turned 18 years old. Good luck. What do you say to somebody like that? You can't. But guess what? Wayne can. Wayne is encouraging this person who is still on the straight and narrow path. I don't know what the future is going to hold for this person to come, 10, 20, 30 years from now. But as of now, Wayne has been beyond the help. Not just her. There's 2 or 3 other people that, he's helping out. But that's the reason why I want to reach out to him, because I saw him as a person who would want to help other people. And so far, he's done miracles so far in the lives of people who are very similar to him. With him knowing Asperger's is very strong in his life. He's got a psychopathy, I'm assuming. But mostly autism and head injury from an accident and stuff really hurt him. So I'm assuming that's part of the amygdala was damaged. Now, just because your amygdala is damaged doesn't mean you have every aspect of psychopathy. You just might not have fear. You might have empathy. You might just not have empathy, but you experience fear, and you can stop yourself from doing horrible things too. So it's not always one size fits all with head injuries and stuff like that with psychopathy. But he has been definitely helping a lot of people out, and I talk to him almost every day.
It's kind of hard to believe that a killer could help other people.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's kind of good to hear that. I mean, at least, like you said, as for now, he's helping. I mean, who knows what's going to happen later on. But I've been noticing that there's several killers throughout history who have turned themselves in, and the police laugh in their face. No, you're not the killer. It's kind of strange to me. I guess most of the time we expect them to try to hide their crimes rather than be like, hey, I did this. I don't want to do it again, kind of thing.
Well, they love the notice. Some of them love the notoriety. They want to be known. They're doing it. Look at me. I'm God. I have the power of life and death. Look at me. I'm God. And you can never take it away from me. I got 40 victims. Beat that. The Gary Ridgways of the world, and the Sam Littles of the world. I got 50 victims, 60 victims. You beat that. Go for it. Funny. No, I said funny story. Horrible. I said funny story, but a story. Dr. Scott Bond, who's been on my podcast, great one-man show, great book about America's fascination with serial killers, great one-man show talking about that throughout America. I think in the world, some way around the world too, other places he does. Interviewed BTK on the phone over the course of a few months or so, wrote about him, went to visit David Berkowitz, who I know very well. BTK I only got to know a little bit, maybe 6 or 7 letters back and forth, I don't know as well. But he told me a story. Somebody I do know very well has been on the podcast a lot, Dana Gray, a female serial killer. He told me the story that BTK told him, Dennis Rader, that he sent him a card in the mail, Dr. Scott Bond, a little handwritten card with some artwork and stuff on it, and complimentary to Dennis. And he says, look at this. So a serial killer sending a card to another serial killer. BTK was offended. Who does she think she is? He has 8 or 9 victims himself. He's like, she only killed 3 people. Who does she think she is talking to me like he's God? He has 8 or 9 kills. He's up here. Who is this person? Only has 3. So that's the mentality. Not that he wanted to get caught. He wanted to, keep doing what he's doing. But there is that aspect of look at me, I'm God, and everybody else is beneath me. Even other serial killers is almost a little competition. Now I found out Dana didn't reach out to him. The letter said, she's fascinated by him, wants to talk to him, wants to get to know him, proud of him. Dana really reached out to him and a few others to find out, am I really like you? She wanted to get to know them because she didn't feel like she was a psychopath. And I don't believe she is because she does have empathy. It just lost, I think, more of the sociopath aspect of it, like we talked about before. But wanted to feel like, see if I'm like them, which she wasn't. That was the motivation for her writing to him. But from his aspect of it, who are you? You only got 3 kills. You're nobody. You don't even deserve to talk to me. I'm BTK. So there is a lot of that in that notoriety. And there's so many people who confess to crimes that didn't even do it. So it's so hard for sometimes the police and detectives. I mean, just like every day. Oh, it's serial killer this, serial killer that. Oh, it's me. But we don't know why. Maybe, that's a whole conversation for maybe a psychologist, a sociologist to talk to. Maybe it's Dr. Scott Baum. We talk to him about it next time I talk to him. What is the motivation to take credit for something you didn't do? Now, we talked about Laverne Pavlinac with Keith Jesperson in the Tanya Bennett case. We know why. To stop her husband from abusing her and beating the crap out of her. Okay, I understand it. But what is their motivations? Because they get so many people to confess to crimes, large scale, small scale, that they didn't do. That'd be like, again, a conversation for another time. That somebody knows a little bit more about it than I do for the sociological aspect of it. So who knows? But it's a lot of it going on.
You mentioned Sam Little, and I think there's some speculation on the amount of victims that he actually had, that he may have confessed to killings that he didn't do. I think it seems like when I'm researching, like you find a lot of cases have like, hundreds of people like confess that they did it. And then, they're still looking for the killer. Just recently I had somebody on my show and we were talking about the Delphi case, and he actually doesn't believe the killer is the killer just based off of the prison conditions. He was living in solitary and, he was like laying in his own feces before he confessed. Then that was like a year in prison before he even confessed. Up until that point, he denied everything. After that, when he broke in prison, apparently, he confessed over 60 times. And it's actually like a big thing. And there's people actually trying to figure out for sure if he was the guy or not.
They can put me and you in situations like that with mental torture, sleep deprivation, so many things that they can do over the course of months and months and months. Me and you'll be confessing to stop it. So I have no doubt. Now, I don't know that case specifically. Now, I don't know the actual truth, of course, behind it, but sure, 100%. If somebody wants you to confess to something with the mental torture that they can put you in with this, sleep deprivation is one of the worst things to do. And the music they can play and the sound of screaming rabbits and screaming animals and torturous sound. And over the course of weeks and months with barely any food, water, no sleep. I did it. Just stop it. I'll sign anything you want me to sign. That was the big argument with waterboarding. I'll tell you anything you want. Just stop it. Not that I'm for or against it per se, but you should put somebody in torturous conditions. It's me. Just stop it. You can see that. But then on the other hand, we have guys like Henry Lee Lucas, from back in the day, who he confessed to everything. He just couldn't confess. But why was he extremely mental? He hit one or two murders we know for a fact. Because his name was a partner, Henry Lucas, and I forget the name of his partner that he had. But he was confessing because he had nothing his whole life, nothing of substance at all. They were feeding him ice cream, all kind of goodies and goodies. The more he would confess, the detectives were coming from around the country, even from around the world. I don't know how many ended up confessing to, like hundreds of murders. People are just happy to close cases on them. And then they realize, it's not, you actually see this on a documentary, you actually see the actual interview. People from Japan, detectives who didn't even speak English, from Japan, came to his facility. You can watch the interview. Did you kill so-and-so in Japan? Yep. How did you get there? I drove. Huh? From America, the bridge? You mean the bridge from America to Japan? You drove? Oh yeah, I drove there. And you see him like look at each other like, what? That was when the crack started to form where, no, you didn't kill anybody. You killed like two people. But he confessed. Why? Because he liked ice cream and he liked the notoriety. He liked the attention. So it's, who knows, many different kinds of motivational factors will get you to confess to something you didn't do. From being tortured to notoriety. I'm a Mr. Narcissist. I want to be God. From the Happy Face to BTK. That's what I said. Happy Face will confess to many more if he did them. But that's just of those anyway. But for that specific case, that kind of torture, mental abuse, and all that, anybody will confess. I don't care who you are.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like in 1984 when they got, how many fingers am I holding up? And then the person finally says 5 or whatever they asked them, tell them that there is when there really wasn't. It makes sense. I had assumed that guy from the Delphi case, I can't remember his name at the moment, but I assumed he was the guy. Like you see this blurry picture of him walking on the bridge and they call him the bridge guy. And he says down the hill. And, you see the picture of, you see the guy that they think is the bridge guy and he looks kind of same. He sounds kind of the same. And, so of course I assume, well, he's the guy, until I, heard something otherwise. And it made me think about it. Hey, well, maybe the prison conditions do have something to do with it.
Good.
Especially now hearing, how you describe the prisons, it is torturous conditions that it sounds like these people are living in. It's not just they're confined in uncomfortable ways.
Yeah.
And
I mean, you could just throw somebody in a hole and just in solitary. Just no human action. All they get is that little crack in the door, open up to put your food in there once or twice a day, and that's it. The light never goes off. The light, that's a few people that I know had talked about situations like that. That was the worst part. The light never went off. They didn't know what time of day it was. They have no idea. They just know twice a day they got food. It's okay. It must be like maybe morning time. They have a sense of a little bit. But in the middle of the night, the light never went off. Couldn't sleep. And then you throw in the torturous aspect of it by blasting music and the sleep deprivation. But just alone being in solitary for months and months and months, just that enough to have somebody crack for sure.
Do they get books in solitary? Are they allowed to read?
Well, I mean, different facilities have different things. Sometimes in solitary, you just can't leave your cell. All right. You're that kind of restrictions, the hole, so to speak. Others, oh no, you have no clothing either. You get a blanket and you have a hole in the ground to go to the bathroom, both types. And that's what you get. No shower, no nothing, months and months at a time, a little bit of food here and there. But no, your hole is literally a concrete block to sleep on. You get one blanket, sometimes no clothes at all, no running water. And then you got a hole in the ground to use. And that's it. And you're not there for a day. You're not there to cool off for an hour. You're there sometimes for a long period of time, 60 days, 90 days, 30 days. And again, but when you're talking to somebody with psychopathy, doesn't experience fear, how do you think they're coming out of that cell? I'm rehabilitated, guys. Thank you. I needed that. Or like, I'm going to kill you and your family, your mother. I'm going to find out where you live, Mr. Prison Guard. And then, no, you're coming out a freaking monster. You're ready to kill for sure. Now, those who don't have psychopathy, like somebody like me going in there, oh, I'm so sorry. I'll never do it again. But I don't have psychopathy. I'm not at that level of violent offender. You put different people in a hole, you get two different outcomes, So yeah, punishment works for some people, like frail people like me who I'm not gonna, I'll cave in a second. You don't want to confide in me nothing, Yeah, you did it. But those guys, that doesn't work. You're making a big mistake throwing that dude in the hole, trying to torture that dude. Because one, he ain't going to break. Two, wait till you see who's going to do is when he get out. Like Andrew Elmaker, I mentioned before. Well, he went out and beat to death first guy he saw. So everybody's a little bit different.
Yeah, I don't know. I imagine that if I had like about 100 books, I could probably stay in the hole for a month.
Yeah.
But if they don't even give you that, you don't even have your own clothes on. I mean, that is kind of inhumane. I wouldn't
completely. Yeah,
I wouldn't want to be the prison guard who like subjects somebody to that. I don't think I could do it. I don't think I could be like, well, you got to remove your clothes and lay on the cold cement for the next 30 days.
And some are there for years. And then in solitary, maybe not in that horrific, but just still solitary. You might be able to, you still get a shower in there, but no communication with anybody. You can't go outside. I mean, sometimes you maybe get like an hour here and there, but usually just there for years. And from there, you get let out of prison. That's where I said the suicide rate is over 70% of those who have done a year or two in solitary and from solitary get released, which happens every day. You can't mentally, you can't do it. You can't do it. I don't care how strong you are. That back to the free world where you're already institutionalized. Now you're somebody who's living in the hole or in some type of solitary for months and months, if not years, and then you're released. Good luck.
And these are guys who are not killers. They could have just like forged a signature on a check or stole a
Doesn't
car.
matter. The hole is the hole. Solitary. Whether you're a serial killer or whether you shoplifted at the supermarket, you do something, you're going to the hole. That's the same spot. And if you make it multiple offenses, now your multiple offense might be, it's the same whether you got caught stealing an extra Twinkie or something, or you did something a very, very minor offense and you got to solitary, or you just killed somebody. You're going to solitary, going to the same place. There's not levels of different solitary within the same prison anyway. So some solitaire is a little better than others. That's also depending on your age a little bit too. I know guys who did some, some things, but they're in a wheelchair bound. All right, you can't leave your cell. All right, there's different things, certain times there's little differences, but for the most part, the hole's the hole. So somebody who, a serial killer spends a couple months in there might not be affected quite as you did. We did something petty in the prison to go thrown in a hole. Well, we're not going to come out the same. Who you are. We're not coming out the same person. You spent a year in a hole. We're not coming out the same.
Yeah, I just can't imagine that. But like part of me is like, well, if you're like a killer or a rapist or a child molester, something like that, like I feel like the whole, I don't care as much. Yeah. But I mean, some crimes, I mean, maybe there should be a level of like what type of crime you're in jail for or in prison for. You get this type of punishment versus, if you've done all of these extra horrible things. I mean, I guess there's also the possibility they committed other crimes that we don't know about. They're in prison for one thing, but they've done hundreds of other things too. But
yeah. Now, there's some prison facilities where within the prison facility, there might be different levels. Like in one facility, you might have death row. You might have the highest level of security versus white collar crimes, like level 2 versus level 5, different. But on that same level, there can be, serial killers, and it could be, somebody, not a serial killer, but done pretty bad stuff too. That holds the same. But, someone in death row or someone in a very, very violent unit versus, somebody a white collar crime, they both have a solitary, but they're not equal. If you're comparing apples for apples in the same unit, because you're some murderers versus and car thieves in the same place, they'll go to the same type of hole. But yeah, there's different, depending what kind of facility you're at and what level you're at, those would be a little bit different for sure.
Well, kind of going off of what you said earlier, it makes more sense not to put somebody who's going to get out in a situation that's going to make them worse. And I think the whole definitely makes them worse.
Sure.
I mean, if they're going to get out 10 or 15 years, I mean, it seems like it would be better for society outside of prison if you're not like making them extra crazy by.
Sure, you think? Yeah. That's why I preach as loud as I do, just for that same reason, but it doesn't work like that. Mm-hmm. And the lifer doesn't care. He doesn't want you to see you get out. And when he knows your release date is next month, he's going to do something. Something to piss you off, something to get you to crack, something to get you to stay in there longer. That happens all the time. You get a release date, there's some place, I'm happy for you to get out, but there's other vindictive people in there. You're getting out and I'm not. And you might already rub you the wrong way. You might not even like each other. Well, something might happen to you. You might put something in a situation where you're going to mess with that guy's release date because I don't want to see you. I'm not getting out. And you are? Not today, you're not. So prison is a whole other world. I mean, it's people, you can watch all the TV shows in the world you want. It doesn't work. You get the cameras that go in the 90 days in, whatever it's called, 60 days in, 90 days in, where they go like a local jail, some basic place. They ain't prison. Prison's a whole other world. People have no idea what goes on in some of those prisons. It's whole rules are different in there.
It does seem counterproductive for sure. Sorry, I had something popped up on my screen here, but I had something I wanted to say, but I lost it. So, there's this show that I did watch from HBO a few years back called The Night Of, and it basically describes a perfectly good person who gets arrested for a murder that he didn't commit. Mm-hmm. And then by the end of the show, he's actually now going to be a criminal because he went into the prison.
Yeah.
I remember now. The case study of the college kids who did the prisoners and the guards. They had that little, I'm sure you've seen it before, right?
What was it?
There was a case study where some psychologist decided to have two groups, prisoners and guards, and they're going to have a fake prison. And, the guards are going to be the guards, the prisoners are going to be in the cells. And by the end of it, the guards were abusing the prisoners and the prisoners were accepting it as if it was okay because they were in prison. It's really creepy. It's, and it really happened. I mean, I feel like that's what's happening in actual prisons too. They think they're the guards, so they have to be this way. I don't know. Maybe somebody should be in the prisons making sure they're not doing these things.
You would think, but it's again, some are better than others. But I mean, you also have narcissistic prison guards, who they cannot show weakness. They can't, because they will be getting, again, some of these guys in prison are master manipulators, know how the system works. Can't show any weakness at all, because they'll completely take advantage of. They have to be the strong dictator type, enforce the rules. They can't stray from that, or they'll be eaten alive. That's the way the prison is set up now, unfortunately. It's separated by race. You can be outside. That black dude could be your best friend. You can't even talk to him in prison. You'll get jumped by your own people. So it's a whole different universe in there. So the guards, again, most prisons, the higher security ones anyway, you can't even talk to a guard. You're a rat. You can't say nothing. You can't be buddy with the guards, or you're a rat, and your own people are going to take you out for being a rat. All you said was, "Hey, how you doing? How's the wife and kids?" Well, no, that could kill you. You could die from that. You can get shanked or stabbed from a simple little communication with the guard, like in a friendly way. So they are the enemy. The guards there are the enemy. You're not allowed to talk to them. Unless specific things that you need to communicate to get across. But like on a personal level, don't talk to them too much. That's when they hate when they take you out of the cell to another room for whatever reason. Oh, a rat. You must be ratting. The paranoia there. It's so obviously so high strung no matter what. But that's not a job I'd want, being a prison guard. I had it was Callahan on, I forget his first name. Callahan used to be a prison guard at San Quentin when he was in charge of Richard Ramirez and Charles Manson. And he had a decent report, because death row is a little different. When death row, what people don't realize, like if you're going to go to prison for a long time, you want to be on death row. That's why a lot of victims I hope he goes to death row. Really? You're probably not going to be put to death for the next 40, 50 years. You're probably going to die in prison anyway, with all the appeals and everything else. And that's where you want to be. Nobody messes with you there. You're not going to be in general population. No one's going to be able to get to you, for the most part anyway, except for other death row guys. But even that's kind of pretty hard sometimes. But that's where you want to be. You kind of want to be on death row. So sometimes prison guards have a little bit easier on death row than like a general population, believe it or not. But it's why, but it's not a job. It's not a job I want for sure. No shot.
Yeah. I just recently watched a documentary on this guy who is trying to get himself on death row while he's in prison, just so he can get out of,
Yeah, exactly. I just said, yeah.
It's crazy to me. It's hard to believe. But Keith, we've been here almost 2 hours now. I think we should probably end it now.
So, whatever you want. You're good.
I could keep talking forever, but I imagine, it's a good time to stretch and all of that.
Yeah. Well, I hope your viewers and listeners are enjoying it for sure.
Yeah. Let me find. What's the name of your channel?
I'm on, most of your major podcast networks. Spotify is the one I typically, use the most. But the lighter side of true crime. Same with all the social media, all those different pages that I'm on. But primarily Spotify. I should do better on YouTube to make some more videos. I do have some video chats that I've done for prison, and I loaded up. But primarily it's the audio version. The selfie killer Amanda Taylor, who was on before. I just uploaded one with her. We're going to do a special Halloween episode talking about obviously all things spooky, and favorite horror movies and stuff. We'll both kind of dress up a bit. I've known her for a while. I just uploaded a little clip from last night where we had a video chat kind of promoting the Halloween episode. And as crazy as it sounds, people are fascinated by her, because she's a beautiful girl, young girl, selfie killer. Her husband took his own life from a horrible opioid addiction. His father was the one supplying the drugs, so she ended up killing the father because he kind of blamed him for, that. So stabbed him to death and decided to take a selfie with the bloody weapon with the body in the background. That's her claim to fame. And then she killed the guy who helped them with the whole deal. I told her story. But what she wants to do, which is pretty wild, for the real true crime fans, real deep true crime fans, she wants to spend Halloween with somebody in prison. So I think we're going to have like a crazy contest where if you want to actually talk to her and get to know her, she's going to offer, do a video chat with her, about a 50-minute video chat, and then a phone call that's going to last all Halloween night. And she says, talking all things spooky. So we're going to do some kind of contest where follow me on social media and we'll tell you what that's going to be. But she decided she wanted to do that last night. You know what? For Halloween, something spooky. You want to talk to the selfie killer all night and have a video chat with her. And that's the only communication from then on. She's never going to talk to you again. But just something wild and crazy out there, for the true crime fans. If anybody's listening, follow me on social media. Just follow the lighter side of true crime and you'll see me post something on there. And I did a cool AI thing with her where she mentioned going to be on the podcast, and I turned her into this big knife, and she started carving a pumpkin, which she can't do it in prison, so it's obviously AI. But keep an eye out for that. But yeah, anything lighter side of true crime, I'm on Ashley Banfield show. I make appearances on Inside Edition, Fox News, all the major networks. Nancy Grace, I'll pop on here and there. And other than that, just follow the podcast and hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, I've listened to several of your podcasts, and they're great. And I do recommend you guys go check out his podcast. There's a lot of good information in there. And Keith, it was great having you on the show. I really hope you'll join me again at another time.
Anytime, buddy. I'll be there.
Yeah. All right. You guys have a good rest of your Sunday, and I'll catch you in the next show.